Okay. Okay, we're officially open.
This meeting is being recorded.
So
All right.
there'll be other people I suspect to come in. Just be aware of the fact that the 20 or so names that came in the email you got on this meeting, those are addresses of people that you can use. So
Okay.
if you see somebody's name, yeah, he's my old friend. Send him. And the other thing to remember is that okay. The other thing to remember is that I have another website called specialforcesphotos.com. And if you go up there and sign in, use your name. Don't use any handle. I know who you are. I approve you. And then after that, you can go back up there and there are albums for every single team in Vietnam.
Oh, well.
And you can upload pictures to those albums and you can write captions. And if you're up there, you see a caption,
Okay.
you can go in there and write, I'm the third guy from the left.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So
No, that's
use
now what was the site? sfphotos.com.
specialforcesphotos.com.
Okay. Oh.
And you gotta spell it out. The same thing, specialforcesbooks.com. If you just say sfbooks.com, you will end up in a gay bookstore in San Francisco.
But this address, Steve, is part of what you sent us, correct?
Right.
Okay. All right.
The link you may have here is the link I use for holding these meetings.
Gotcha.
So you just click on it and bang, you're at the meeting. You just found out today. So yeah, I just finished a meeting with people from A-323 or 324. We had about 10 people at that meeting. Everybody who misses these meetings is really missing out because they're going very well. And you guys have demonstrated how easy it is to just get on here.
Hey, Brock,
Yeah.
what's that long gun you got hanging up there?
Oh, that's there's an M1 right above me.
Oh, okay. M1 or M1 Grand?
There's an M34 German machine gun right next behind me. And then there's a 1903 Springfield. I'm in the VFW post right now.
Oh, okay.
I'm bartending.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, I'm drinking. You guys are sober.
Yeah, that's a good SF side thing.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to find me an M14. That's what I'd like to find.
I want to buy one. They're a fantastic weapon.
Yeah. I did well with that.
Hey, Stephen. Hello.
Did we lose Stephen?
Oh, you didn't lose me. I'm here.
Hey, this is Sam Seaton.
Right.
I had the A324 from August through probably December '67. And I had a couple guys that I remember that were on the team, Master Sergeant Johnson and SFC O'Neill. They're the ones that come to mind. O'Neill was a medic. Both of them were with Donlin when he got his Medal of Honor. I don't think they're on there, but
Who were you talking about now? Give me the names again.
O'Neill, SFC O'Neill, and Master Sergeant Johnson.
Who was with Roger Donald?
Both of them.
Both of them?
Yeah.
Remember that?
O'Neill was my medic, and he got pissed. Colonel Happersad at B-32 got pissed off at him because after he told him in the bar to take his dog to Saigon to the vet because it was sick. So O'Neill went out to the East Helipad and the dog died. So we threw him in the trash can. We threw him in a 55-gallon drum and came back, and then Habersatt saw him at the bar and he said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I sent you to Saigon to and take my dog to the vet."
Oh,
He
boy.
said, "Sir, I'm sorry, but he died." "Where is he?" He's in the trash can at,
Oh, boy.
and Habersatt said, "Well, you go get him." And then he arranged he arranged a military funeral for that damn dog and had a 21 gun salute with all the CIDG. That just gives you a feel for how crazy some of our guys are.
The good old days.
He
Yeah.
loved,
How are you spelling O'Neill?
O'Neil.
What that his first name?
I forgot. I'll do some research.
Wasn't his name O'Neill something?
SFC O'Neill something. That's his last name, O'Neill. And
No.
Sergeant Johnson. I'll go look. I'll do some research and send them to you. I had a bunch of radio operators too, about 30 of them, from all over the darn place, doing relay for the 25th Division, 1st ID, 121st Signal Battalion, and we had to protect them along with the dependents and water carriers and the CIDG, all the way up in time till Coleman showed up, C Company commander, and they decided that we needed to go away, so they closed their camp down and turned it over to the 25th Division. And you know what happened to him, right?
Who's speaking?
This Sam Seaton.
We lost your picture there, Sam. Hey, Steve,
I couldn't help it.
where's Sam? Can't.
You got me now?
there he is.
Yeah,
Me.
got you loud and clear.
You were there in 68?
68 to 69. I got in country September 68 and left out November 69.
Were you with the, were you Special Forces there?
Yeah, that's why I'm on this.
Did they take,
I'm on
did
this
they
call,
take-
huh?
did they take,
I went to A Company.
yeah,
So
they must,
I went to A Company, Benoit. I mean, that's where I was assigned, A Company, and then I was assigned to B-32, and
Yeah.
then from B-32, I went down to Duke Way, A-325.
okay, you weren't on,
Bradley was the CO.
you weren't 324.
Huh?
You weren't at 324.
No. Now 324 was what?
Nui Ba
Nui
Den.
Ba Den. That was on the Black Virgin Mountain.
Well, I know I was up on. I just forgot the nomenclature for it. But yeah, I was on Nui Ba Den. I just forgot it was 324.
You had Nui Ba Den, Nui Ba Ko, and Nui Ba Ra, three mountains. Nui Ba Den was the highest, and there was a Buddhist pagoda on top, small one. And then there was a big reservoir that they made to capture water. The engineers came in and built chalets for the defensive positions and for the CIDG to be housed. And then, of course, the NVA came up there and slaughtered them after I left. They lost, Stefan, I think they lost quite a few people. I mean, quite a few soldiers.
That's what
24.
Sam was saying.
Huh?
I believe Sam was speaking to that.
Yeah, I'm speaking to that.
No.
Yeah, I was too.
I mean, Dan, not Sam. I'm sorry. Dan.
You know,
was speaking to
They
that.
lost 24 Americans.
24 Americans? Okay.
Yeah.
And one of whom was Coleman, right?
Oh,
Coleman was from 25th.
Yeah,
Captain Coleman.
commander.
He was the
Yeah.
commander.
One of them was a,
As I cautioned him when he
Yeah.
left, not to fire the water carriers. And he ended up doing what I told him not to do. And they got lax. And of course, the engineers built a nice camp for him to look like a Swiss chalet, each of the defensive positions. So they knew what to target. So
Well,
they just came up there and
oh yeah,
blew
awful.
them away.
When I was up there, it was nothing but boulders. boulders and the hooches from the various units that were up there. We had out the front door of our hooch, and again, this is a combo hooch, the front door of our hooch, and I think there were 4 of us in that hooch. But the front door of our hooch faced the opening of a cave that had been evidently used during that attack that you're speaking of. They had thereafter filled it up with rocks and boulders and all that. But I never felt comfortable coming out that door because I said, wait a minute, hell, they've been in this damn mountain since the French. And so even
That's
though
right.
that cave entrance was filled up, I'm like, oh, I never felt comfortable. I was glad to get the hell off the mountain and get down to
Oh.
A-325.
We own the mountaintop, and they own the center and down below
That's
the
right.
big Buddhist pagoda. I climbed the mountain myself several times with the water carriers, and one time I had O'Neill. Sergeant O'Neill was a medic, right? And the one that I mentioned. And before I went to B-32, I was the S1 during Tech, which was February '68. Anyway, before I went there, Colonel Hayes, my commander, was it Hayes? No, Vance. Colonel Vance, my commander, said, I need a body count. I said, you haven't produced a body count for a while. And I said, okay. So I planned an ambush on some of the trails about the middle of the mountain. And I sent down a CIDG platoon along with O'Neill and set up an L-shaped ambush and told him to dig in while the CIDG were playing grab ass. And I told them, and firing their guns. And
Oh, shit.
and then scatter sea rations around to track them because I know they were all scavengers. And then towards dark, move back to camp and have them play grab ass and shoot their guns and pretend like they didn't give a shit, which most of the time that's the way they were. But leave the ambush, L-shaped ambush, dug in, and we had both sides of the trail marked by the mortars in the camp and also the big guns down below from artillery. And they came down right after they left, and they started scarfing up everything that was left. And they sprung the ambush, and O'Neill sprung the ambush and killed 39 of them.
Oh, well,
And I was in the S1. I was downtown. I was down in B-32 in a briefing with Colonel Vance, and he was chewing my ass because of the body count. Then I got a call from O'Neill on the radio. I think it was a Prick 70 or PRC 25. And he said, sir, we executed the ambush. We killed 39. Mission complete. So then I looked over at Colonel Vance and said, sir, is 39 a good number? You like that number? He said, yeah, I like that number. Good number. I said, okay. So you got him off my back. And I think that's what pissed off the VC and the NVA to come and take the camp later after we left.
oh, okay.
But I don't know if anybody ever knew that.
Edward J. O'Neill passed away in 2014. He was a medic, probably that medic.
Yeah, he was a medic, Medics aren't supposed to do that shit, but they did it.
He was a Nui Ba Den, so I got to put him over there. I don't know.
You found it?
I don't know what period of time his tour was 1066 to 1067. But he was also at B-34, B-34, A-342. And I don't know, I think he was 4 months at Nui Ba Den. Was that the last 4 months of his tour?
I think so.
So about from June to October of 67.
Yeah.
Right?
He came to me and wanted me to put him in for an air medal about 5 years later, but no, I lost track of him.
He died in 2014, but he retires as a command sergeant major.
Oh, he did? Okay. Wow.
Did anybody, was anybody, any of you guys went through training group in 67?
And I don't have records from that way. Give me a name, I can look them
No, I
up.
was just asking the folks that were here, whether or not any of these guys went through in 67. I was at Bragg in 67. I came in right after jump school, I guess I graduated in July of 67, Benning, and then came over that evening.
Well, the three guys who are on there with you are all at Nui Ba Den during 67.
Say again?
All the three guys on here with you, Elias, Dan, and Sam, were all Nui Ba Den in 1967.
Well, that's a good thing to help clear out some of that stuff that was before I got there.
Yeah, I went through training group in 61 and 62.
Okay,
And I was there when Kennedy gave the Green Beret back to Yarborough at McKenna Lodge.
oh,
And
okay,
it was a big deal for me. I had no idea what was going on. I was just a private. And they stuck me out there as a partisan to jump up, pretend like I was, and wave a flag. And I saw that ceremony, and of course, it's classic.
right. Were you an
I was
SF baby?
I was a diddy dum diddy like you.
I mean, but were you an SF baby? You
Yes
remember
and
what that is? I was an SF baby.
You were?
Yeah. I was having too much fun in college. And so my dad didn't like the idea that I was going to have to take a leave at the university. And so I saw this poster downtown. I'm from Providence, Rhode Island. So I saw this poster downtown of this A-team. And at the bottom of it, they were in their dress, their dress greens and, jump boots and beret and everything. This was 67. And all it said was, "Are you man enough?"
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have an affirmative answer to that, but it was an interesting question that kind of got your blood tingling.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was saying that to say that I came into the Army to try to get into SF, and then the recruiter said, "Hey, well, we can't do that. We can guarantee you jump school, but SF does their selection, once you've completed jump school." And so I graduated as #1 in my basic training class, was a squad leader. And again, I didn't go to AIT, although I'd come out of college. I didn't go to AIT. When I say AIT, I'm sorry. I didn't go to Officer Candidate School because I was trying to go to SF. And I was told that SF wasn't taking second lieutenants. And so, well,
That's
this is
bullshit.
67. Yeah.
That's what they wanted. They didn't. First of all, the group didn't like second lieutenants unless you prior enlisted experience in SF.
Oh,
And
okay.
all the A teams went from their XOs went to war officers later on.
Well,
But
Yeah.
anyhow,
yeah, I was.
So anyway, I graduated from jump school. I was a squad leader there as well. I graduated as an honor graduate. Well, just before graduation, we fall out on the cables. There, at Benning to get your assignment the next morning. But before that, they said, "Chapman, report over to Billet, something such, and SF wants to talk to you." So I'm thinking that I'm going to do whatever physical stuff that I had in my head that SF would have me do. I get over to the billet. They give me a pad and a pencil, sat me down at a desk, and for that hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it was, I was writing.
Wow.
I was answering questions and writing. There was no physical, no push-ups, no running or none of that kind of stuff. They had me writing.
what'd you write about?
I don't know. They were, like essay questions,
Oh,
kind
I
of
see.
thing. But also, when I say writing, I also had to answer questions. They were There were a lot of questions there you had to answer. There was math, of course. And I had taken algebra. I was in a college prep course in high school, so I had taken algebra and I had taken Spanish. So anyway, yeah, that was how I got introduced to SF. I passed it, and I didn't know. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't know what my assignment was until the next morning when we fell out, for assignment. After you graduate, you fall out on the cables. Everybody line up on the cables, and they call out your name and they tell you where you're going. So I'm standing there with all these other guys that graduating in my class, and they're calling out names, 82nd Airborne, 173rd, 101st. I said, Chapman, John F. Kennedy Center of Special Warfare. I said, oh, God, yes. Because I had put it all in to try to go to SF. And I lucked out and got it.
Very good. Yeah,
So
I
I
left.
really got to say I was an SF baby. I was not in, and I didn't know I was a baby until, like I was maybe not until phase 2, finished phase 2, and where the instructors start to talk to you a little bit more because they're pretty much sure that you're going to finish up. So they started telling us about what SF baby meant, that you were not a part of any other military organization before coming into SF, and that your military experience and exposure to tactics and all of that were based on SF. So that made us an SF baby.
So you weren't polluted.
That's correct. That's correct. Well, I won't use that term because some of you guys might have been with some other units.
Well, I was in the 101st, and I was in the 7th Special Forces enlisted, and I grew up as a military brat. So I've been in the Army my whole life.
Okay.
And then after I retired from the military, I was civil service for 30 years. So I guess I was
in the 7th.
I was an A company and headquarters company.
When?
62 to 63.
Okay, yeah, I went to the 7th after I graduated.
Yeah, but listen,
I graduated in the spring of 68.
Were you an XO of an 8 attachment?
Say again?
Were you an executive officer on an 8 attachment?
No. I was 05 Bravo. I was Camo.
Okay. Well, I was that too. I ran the code school, dum code school in the 7th group. And I 18, 20 words a minute. I was on base radio station. I know all that stuff. I got a 109 in my house. I have one-time pads and, I know all that shit. And I'll send you Ben.
Oh, that's cool.
I'll send you Ben's best Brent wire here in a minute. But
Yeah.
when I was an XO on an A team, my commo sergeant I used to work for, and XOs and A team did all the shit details, and I had to write the monthly operational summary report, and I had to write the awards and decorations. I was a supply officer. I was a mess officer. I had to deal with the Chinese contractor for food. I promoted people. I went to the basic training, crawled in the mud with them when they came out of Trang Sup and were signed to our unit. I went on operations with them. I buried the bodies of the dead NVA we slaughtered when they overran our camp. I did everything. But I can understand why later on they want to know if you could write. And you obviously passed the test. But when I went to OCS, you wrote a biography. And you know how many people passed that biography? 50% of our class got kicked out because they couldn't write a biography. They couldn't write a complete sentence. So that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was the other interesting part. Once I got to brag, well, two things. We got to brag that evening. We left Benning that morning, got to brag that evening. And buses pull up, come into training group. And I shouldn't say buses because I think there was only one bus. There wasn't a whole bunch of us that came out of Benning. And the door opened. Folks started filing off. The guy who was standing there waiting on us, I don't even think he was in uniform. I think he had a T-shirt on. And, had his, had his pad there. And he started calling off the names and telling us, Chapman, you're going to A Company, and pointed off to where that billet was. Those were new barracks. And then the next morning, that was the first thing. It was, you go through basic, you go through AIT, you go to jump school, and they're trying to make it as physical as possible to see who can handle it. And so I'm thinking once you get off this bus, the stuff was going to start. Nope.
Nope.
This guy was as cool as a cucumber. And then the next morning, we wake up. The next morning, here's what happened. It was Saturday morning. Somebody came to the door and opened the door and said, breakfast is being served. I'm like, what? Is this? And that was my beginning to being in the cool SF as opposed to some, unit that's got yelling and screaming, all that kind of stuff.
Opposed to being in the 82nd.
Yeah.
So yeah, my introduction was good. My training was good. My phase 3 senior NCO trainer later came to my team in January of '69. He came over as an intel sergeant.
Cool.
He then later went on to become, I think, if not the first, one of the first sergeant majors in Delta. Name was Foreman.
Did you stay in SF or did you jump around?
No. I left. I left after Vietnam. I was ambivalent. I enjoyed SF. I mean, hell, that was cool as can be, other than being shot at, another having to work with those CIDG, but that was cool. So I was okay with being with SF, but as I said, I had partied my way out of college, and I wanted to go and redeem myself with my parents, especially my dad. And so I decided to come back. And then, at Bragg, they tell you, well, look, if you want to know about your next assignment, or if you want a certain assignment, you go and speak to Mrs. Alexander, Mrs. A.
Mrs. A.
So I came back home, called up Mrs. A, got an appointment with her, put on my, my Class A's, my spit shine jump boots and my beret, and marched myself up to the Pentagon. Now, that was cool. That was cool. Walking down the hallway at 69 at the Pentagon. So anyway, met with her and told her, I enjoyed SF, and I wasn't sure whether or not I should leave or not, or go back to school. She said, Chapman, they're going to be drawing down SF big time. They're going to be drawing down. She said, you go ahead back to school. And that's what I did.
Right. Yep.
I have never heard of anybody getting bad advice from Billy Alexander.
No, it was something.
Whether it was to go back to Vietnam or go to Germany or get out of SF, she had the right answer for each individual.
Well, I left training group in like May of '67, or maybe April. I went to the 6th Special Forces and sat around there and weren't really doing anything. And then June, the first week in June, that's when the 7-day war in Israel hit. And that was our area of influence. So I don't know, I can't remember who came to the barracks, but they said, okay, guys, get your guns and everything ready because we may be going to the Middle East. We were all excited, and scared half to death. Yeah. And he comes through about 4 days later and says, put everything away. The Israelis already kicked their ass. God damn it, we were pissed off. But, so then I called Mrs. Alexander and I said, I'd like to go to Vietnam. I've had all this training. I've only got a little over a year left. And she says, you sure you want to go? You don't have to. You just get the end of your career and go home. I says, no, send me over there. So I went over there and ended up in B-32, went to Nui Ba Den, went to Trang Sup, then ended up in Ten Yan for 3 or 4 months. I can't remember exactly when. And then I ended up Ten Yan, yeah.
I helped put that base in north of Canaan. Captain Lopez was the commander, and I wrote him up for a Silver Star when they put that base in. I went in under fire in the Huey, but that was right in the middle of War Zone C. That was a tough base.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Big star base. It was a huge, and all the buildings were above ground except for the commo shop. And our commo man was Lance Tremor. Anybody know Lance Tremor?
No,
Sherman, I'm sure he and I talked to you at the last in El Paso.
Yeah.
He passed
Yeah,
away.
yeah, I knew Lance.
So
Hey,
then
Sherman,
Yeah.
did you know Jerry
Hey,
Friend
Brock. I'm
and
sorry.
Billy Boggs?
who?
Jerry Friend and Billy Boggs, both of them were comic guys.
And
That's okay.
I've got a picture of the whole team. I'll download it. We had Haggart. I think that was Haggart. He was our team sergeant.
Bob Haggard.
Did you know him? Yeah, he was a good
I
guy.
knew Bob
He was a smart
Charlie
guy.
Haggard was up, and I'm sorry. Charlie was it Charlie or Bob?
Charlie Hack.
Charlie Haggard, yeah, he was one of the guys that was up. Me, Larry Kelly, Charlie Haggard, and a guy named SFC Gilbert. We were the four that were there during the May 13th hit party. So yeah, no, I was curious, Chapman,
Yeah.
on when you were at Nui Ba Den, your sleeping, is that correct? With 2x6 beams holding the roof down?
Oh, you're asking me an engineer question. I have no idea.
Anybody?
I mean, no, you were there. We built after we got hit, and we built our commo bunker right next to the mountain. And I was curious when you said the entrance was about, it was only about 36 inches wide and about 4.5 feet tall. And the entrance to the sleeping quarters and where the commo equipment was.
Well, there
Was
was,
it still like that when you get there?
no, the hooch, if I remember correctly, the hooch, the sleeping quarters, I don't recall it being separated from the equipment, from the commo equipment. For some reason, I'm
No,
thinking that it was just one large
weren't.
room,
There was,
the bunks off to one side, and,
yeah.
you know.
Well, when I was at Trang Sup,
I'm just curious.
they
Say again, Don?
sent me a TDY out to Tonga Sean. Anybody ever go by that place?
I was the XO of that A team during the battle, in August of '67.
Right.
Where
You
was
were
it?
there August '67?
Yes, I was
Did
the
you-
XO. Captain Berg was the commander, and we held them off. We got attacked by 2 regiments. The 614th 101 Squadron came in and bombed the shit out of them. And we brought in Puff and Spooky. And I had the Mike Force there with me, or part of the Mike Force. And we survived only because Abrams had been out there a couple weeks before and chewed my ass because we hadn't put in a 4.2 mortar pit. The
Wow.
mortar and the rounds for white phosphorus and HE had not been put underground. So he chewed my butt, Creighton Abrams. So we dug a pit with a D5 dozer, and I went up with the FAC and registered the guns because I'd been a 4 deuce bunny. Did I lose you? Am I lose you?
Really important Zoom meeting.
He's up somewhere. You keep on talking.
Did you hear me?
I hear you.
And anyhow, the bad guys were watching us, and they thought the mortar pit was a hot point. And all we were doing is hiding it from Abrams, so when he came back, it'd be ready for inspection. So they hit us there, and they blew the mortar pit,
Thanks.
and destroyed 200 or 300 of their own people as they came across, penetrated our wire, and that's what saved our ass. Anyhow, yeah, I've been to Tonley,
What camp was that?
Tonley, Sean, A-334.
A-324, okay.
It was
Yeah.
between Nui Ba Den and basically Loch Ninh, or you had to go to the tomb first, and then you went to Tonley, Sean, and then you went to B30, I think it was B31, and then you went north to Loch Ninh, and then further north you went to Budap.
Oh,
So
okay,
it's all in the rubber plantation area.
okay.
Yeah, the Loch Ninh attack happened in August, 1967, at the end of October and the 1st of November. And I was on top of the commo shack around 2 a.m. at Tonley, just listening, and all of a sudden the attack starts. So I got to listen to these helicopter pilots wiping out the 50 caliber machine gun NVA that were, chained to their guns probably. But
That's where Benavides was kicking ass.
oh boy, that's a hell of a battle. But Tonley, have you ever read, Sam, have you ever read the action report from the 01 pilot that was there at night and then flying over and calling in the airstrikes?
I don't know. I was talking to him.
Yeah,
was-
well, that's an incredible, it's 1 page long that he describes what he was doing, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, we were, they hit our talk and blew the talk and smoked out our commo, along with, the commo with B30, with our B detachment. And the oil dump, the gas dump went up in flames after they blew the mortar pit. So I was in a conics container by myself, because they separated the command group, right? So I had to take over, and I was on the radio talking to all those guys and calling in this and that, artillery. We had our own internal 105s, knee mortars, 81, and called in 175s and 8-inch howitzers. And then, of course, the 101, the jets came in, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Miles, who went on to get a Silver Star for going back and get rearmed and coming back and bailing our ass out and killing all. We must have killed 500 or 600, maybe 1,000. There were
Over 800.
And I had to bury the son of a bitches afterwards. You know how the CIDG was, right? Getting them to do anything was a real challenge. But that's an experience I'll never forget. And you were there, huh? Okay, cool.
Well, I was there in end of October and November. But they were the Saigon River right down below the camp.
So you were there
Yeah.
when was Enos there?
Who?
Master Sergeant Enos.
I can't remember.
He was
But
there.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was driving from Oregon. I was in Eastern Oregon, and I got a call from the Air Museum at Palm Springs, California, from the museum director. The name was Fred Bell. And he said, are you Sam? And I said, yes, I am. He said, were you on the A team at Tonley when they got hit? I said, I was. He said, well, Major General Miles, who had been the commander of that 101 squadron that bailed us out, was his last wish was, I want you to get that A team, the survivors, and bring them down here and honor them.
Oh,
And so he said, well, can you help me find them? So I found 4 or 5 of them And they paid for everything. We went down to the hangar, and I got a hold of USASOC and told them I need a speaker. I got a hold of General Mangum, who I knew, and he got me a colonel, an aviation colonel from the 160th. And he came down and gave a great speech, and there was over probably 500 or 600 donators there from the Air Force. You know, Edwards Air Force Base is pretty close. And so they built a hangar, and they honored every one of us that were still alive. And two, they painted a picture of our A team, and they hung it in the museum, and they sent one to each of us. But they paid for everything, and I got to stay in Walt Disney's cottage, the one that he sold in order to finance Disneyland. So that was kind of cool. So I got to meet Mickey Mouse.
Was anyone, you guys who were there in 67, was Khartoum?
Yeah, Khartoum was there. It was between Nui Ba Den and Tongleshan. That was an asshole place.
Yeah, that's the reason why I was asking. I mean, nobody wanted to go in there because they got shot at when you went in. You got shot at coming out. All of their patrols got hit. I mean, that was, and then of course we come to find out later on that that the headquarters for the
NBA,
was
Central
not
Office.
far away.
Central Office, no, yeah, right on the middle of War Zone C, and that's what got Tignon in trouble, because they were they put a camp right smack in the middle of those guys.
But I tell you what saved us at Duke Way, well, as you guys know, I mean, because of the flatness, and the only thing that hampered visibility for, you know, for kilometers was the tree squares. So December 68, we got a TS message. I got a TS message, came in, and gave it to Captain Bradley, our CO. And the message said, have everybody on the team burn everything with their name on it. Now, we have been getting hit every night with 122s and mortars. And this is before the aircraft came out of Cambodia and started photographing the team. That came in 69. And then we had a tank, PT-76, was shooting at us, coming across the border, shooting at us, and then going back into a little lake over there. And so we got this message saying, burn everything. And what saved us was, one, I believe, a company or whoever it was, they sent in a company of the 82nd, I believe it was the 82nd, to surround the camp and help to keep those folks from coming across the border. But had they come, given the terrain, they were going to lose a lot, because there was, I mean, you know, it was flat. They came across, I mean, we were 3 clicks from the border. So as they come across, they were going to have difficulty getting back. And so anyway, the combination of the terrain and the fact that they brought in the 82nd, a company from the 82nd to protect us. And this is Christmas now. I'll never forget, it was Christmas 68. And you're thinking Christmas and they're saying burn everything with your name on it. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you had your KWM2A there to send your Morse code messages and your PRIC 70 or your 109 or whatever.
Oh yeah. Well, of course, you know, you got your basic 109, you know, the PRC7, and then we had the single sideband as well.
Yeah, that's the KWM2A Collins.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what was kind of fun for me? I stayed in the military and retired out of USASOC, and I ran the material management center at my last job, and I was responsible for property of just about everybody in SF, to include the 160th. But as a civilian, I was, and I worked at desk ops in the special operations, okay, in G3 for a lot of the heavy breathers that supported, and we supported the Black Side of SOF, Delta Force, and all those guys. And I was given the honor to help modernize SOF back after 1986, after the Goldwater-Nichols Act, when they made US SOCOM
Right.
Unified Command and
Yeah.
USASOC MACOM under the DA, and took it away from FORCECOM. And we had an equipment fair at Fort Bragg, and I brought down all the R&D engineers from DARPA, from all the AMC commodity commands, and we gave the generals and all the people a clipboard, and they went out and asked soldiers, what equipment do you need? What would you like to have that you don't have now to modernize? You know, rather than letting the engineers figure it out themselves. So a lot of the guys would say, well, I want this stuff because Delta has it. You know, like the digital message device for the 109, you know, and the
Yeah.
printer.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you love to have a printer? And the ram air parachute, and it just went on and on and on. And out of that, we put together 50 requirements documents, and SWIC wrote them all up, and we modernized SOF, gave them all new equipment. And I was a part of that, and I had a lot of fun doing that. And going back and forth between St. Louis, where I was based out of, and DA, the Pentagon, and convincing your General Officer Steering Committee to give us the money for modern.
What was the chute that came after the MC-1? Because I jumped, my last jump was 68 before I was in the 7th.
Well,
and I got my orders to go to Nam.
The MC-1 was the, then you had, that was the NOPO, right? Yeah, that was a steerable chute. MC-1B is a steerable. MC-1C was the NOPO, no porosity parachute. You jump at high altitudes, you come down on the load with and it has low porosity, so you won't, it's called the old man's parachute. So you wouldn't have to do a PLF and hurt himself. But that was the guys, put them under load. Then the Rangers had set 10, and the MC4 was the square chute, you know, the ones that the guys that did Halo used. And I got Natick. We went on a quick reactor turbo and ram air parachute, which was the interim, and pissed off Natick, and they finally got off their ass and fielded or bought research and development, bought the MC4. So we did a lot of pushing, got the fast rope out of the Delta, out of the 160th, and we stole a lot of stuff out of Delta and unclassified it and put it in the groups. Man, that was a lot, and a lot of commo. We built the 112 Signal Battalion, you know, and Dave Bryan was a major. He went on to become a major general. 528 Sport Battalion is now a lot of those guys are lug guys, and we built that. And we total package fielded the 3rd Special Forces Group, and I mean, I just had all kinds of fun doing that. In my second career, you know,
Yeah.
That's one of the good things when you're. I guess I'm a baby, SF baby, you know, in the long term. But being able to do that and do it for a unit you fought with, you know, gives you the motivation to don't take no for an answer. Because I ran up a lot of PSYOPs too. I built print presses for the 4th POG. On and on and on. It's just every day. I was back and forth.
Going through training at Bragg, I guess, I don't know, phase 1 was shooting, the various weapons. We introduced all the various weapons. And Swedish K, of course, was one of those weapons. So somewhere along the line, somebody came to the team and they had a Swedish K with the vest, and I got a chance to become a scrounger. And specifically, I was doing food scrounging. This was in '69. Oh, that was just a great job for me. It wasn't a job, I mean, it was an adventure of scrounging food, after with stuff we had captured, flags, belt buckles, Tycom pistols, etc. What we, how you scrounge and stuff. And so I went on one scrounge mission down to the jail, Long Bend Jail. I had taken a Jeep from, I don't know if I drove it down from Tay Ninh or if I drove it down from Benoit, down Route 1. It was a Highway 1, not Route 1, but Highway 1, down to Long Bend Jail, and doing scrounging. And I had this, I got my tiger stripes on, and my jungle boots, and I got my beret on, and I got this Swedish K vest on, with all these, magazines, and I got my Swedish K. I was so damn happy to get back to the camp to get that damn thing off me. I had not walked around with 45 ammo before. That Swedish K did 45 caliber. And so I'm wearing this damn vest because I wanted all the ammo I could. I'm out here scrounging just in case something happens. Man, I was so glad to get rid of that damn vest, that Swedish K when I got back. I looked cool, but that was it.
Yeah, that basket vest and that ammo was heavy.
Yeah.
Well, what did you do after you got out?
Well, I
Well,
took my
I
degree in
guess-
economics.
Let me ask you this question.
Sure.
What did your experience in SF teach you? And it probably made you capable of doing any damn thing you wanted, right?
I mean, that's a really interesting question because I'm now starting to write my memoir. And my SF experience, of course, is a part of that because I started out, among other things, teaching. And I don't know about when you guys went through, but when we went through in phase one or either phase two, we had this class on doing a lesson plan, writing a lesson plan. So we wrote lesson plans, and then, of course, patrol orders and that kind of stuff, but we wrote lesson plans. And we had to present that lesson, that plan to the class and the instructors. So you either pass or you fail. So your classmates either passed you along with your instructor. So anyway, that was the beginning. I shouldn't say the beginning. I had been with the YMCA as a preteen, a member of the Y, and the YMCA had the leadership corps. And so I was selected to be a part of the leadership corps going back, I guess, when I was 10, 11 years old. So we competed, the leadership corps, the YMCAs in Southern New England competed with one another up at Springfield College in Springfield, Mass. And so
Really?
Springfield, Mass. Springfield
Yeah,
College?
I grew up in Westover.
Oh, okay. And
I know where Springfield is, where they invented basketball.
That's right. So every year we had competition. And so there, those of us in the Corps, all of us had to make a presentation to our group that we were with, the guys that came from our class. So anyway, I was familiar with that. And I had graduated as my high school. I was the valedictorian of the class, and so on and so forth. But so I come out, to get to your question, I come out and there came a time when I needed a job. And so I went became a substitute teacher. And because I was able to manage a class, because as substitutes, that's the major thing. Can you manage a class? They brought me on board to start teaching. So one day I'm teaching math. I'm teaching ninth grade algebra. And I was teaching ninth grade algebra because I had taken calculus as a part of my degree. I was in a PhD program, but I ran out of money, so I could only complete my BA and just one course in graduate school, which was macroeconomics.
Did you
So anyway, I
take
had calculus.
Did you take differential equations too?
If you have differential equations. I can't remember. I mean, we had, algorithms and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, so when I went to the school system and they saw in my resume, they said, "Oh, you've had calculus." And I said, "Yes." They said, "Well, we don't need economists. We need math teachers." So I started teaching 9th grade algebra. Cool. One day the principal came to me, and this is where I'm getting now into the SF stuff. One day the principal came to me and says, "Mrs. Chapman, would you be interested in teaching an economics course?" And hell, he says, "I don't particularly like the coordinator for the system, the school system, the economics coordinator for the school system, and I don't particularly want her course in my school." He said, "Would you be interested in teaching an economics course?" I mean, hell, I'm an SF baby. I just returned home and got my degree in economics. And the principal come and asked me if I want to teach economics. And prior to that, this was like 87, 86, 87. In 85, I had just got appointed to the city's energy commission. So I was on the city's energy commission. And then in 87, a new mayor came on board. You all remember, everybody remembers what happened to Marion Barry. He got caught hitting the pipe. Well, he went to jail, and the new mayor appointed me as chairman of the Energy Commission in 87. So he came to me and said, "Chapman, would you be interested?" So anyway, I put together an economics course, and I'm telling my students, I said, "Look, two things. One, first semester we're doing basic economics, supply, demand, price theory. On a high school level now, But the second semester, I wanted to teach them business plan because I wanted them to have something that they could use." Turns out that Howard University's graduate school, business graduate school, was having a contest for its graduate students, its business graduate students, and they also had a contest for the city's schools. So I'm standing there in front of my students and I'm telling them about this contest. And this one student raised his hand and said, "Mr. Chapman, we can't do this." It was an 11-page instructions on what you had to put into the business plan and all that. And I was a high school student. I'm in the center of the city. I'm at Eastern High School. So this was not the academic high school I was at. This was not the business curriculum high school. This was a high school in the center of Washington, D.C. in 1970. No, this is 1980, 86. And so I know what I had as students. But here I am, I'm saying to myself in my head when I'm putting together a course, well, hell, I'm an SF baby. I had to put together a course and teach that course and present that course at Bragg, and did that successfully. So yes, I did that, got my students to enter the business plan contest. We won the business plan contest that year. Surprised everybody in the city. Eastern High School won the business plan contest at Howard University's graduate business school? Yeah. And then we did it again the second year. And now the city's going crazy. The principal is happy as hell because he's the one that asked me to create a course. He didn't know what kind of course I was creating. He was just happy that I was doing this. And then the third year we won. And I mean, so yes, my SF training helped to liberate me, if you will, in terms of coming back home and going back to school. My high school was an academic, well, it wasn't the academic high school, but it was an academic high school. I mean, we had more guys going to college than we had on the football team, that kind of thing. So I knew, I had capability. I just didn't have the maturity at the time. But I came back home. I'm an SF baby. I've gotten a degree in economics. I've taken macroeconomics graduate courses. And now I've got a chance to put together my own economics course. Hell, God is good.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When I grew up in special forces, and one thing I noted, all enlisted men were smarter than the officers. and that's before officers, it became career, being an SF officer was career enhancing, you know. Otherwise you'd get a
That's right.
captain that wouldn't go anywhere, you know,
That's right.
he retires a captain. But all
That's
the,
why there's so many lieutenant colonels retired now from SF.
that's right. But the NCOs were smart. When I came up through it, a lot of them were DPs from, I had one friend who was had been in the Nazi youth group in Germany.
Oh,
I mean, some of these guys were so smart. Their IQs bordered on genius, and because of the laissez-faire attitude at SF, everybody was accepted, and you were able to do your thing if you're going in the same, and everybody was going in the same direction. And we didn't have any fragging incidents, any of this baby shit that goes on with the millennials we have today. But yeah, that's great. I'm impressed with your the drive that you brought back with you from Vietnam that helped you carry on.
let me ask you this. What I'm asking all you guys. At 11:55 p.m., 1999, where were you guys at? You remember where you were at? 11:55 p.m., 1999.
I was at Forcecom headquarters watching a change of command ceremony, and some of the aide ran out and whispered in the four-star general's ear that something happened and they canceled the formation, and we all went back inside and watched television.
Well, what I'm getting at is, at that time, I became, I'm an appointee of 3 different mayors. I got 3 different mayoral appointments. And so my third mayor, Tony Williams, he was the mayor that took over after Marion Barry, and I became the city's chief energy management officer. So, as you know, 1999, what was happening all across the country was Y2K.
What's
What was going to happen? Y2K.
Oh, Y2K. Okay.
What was going to happen?
It's going to be screwed up, right?
Everybody was, what's going to happen? And I'm the chief energy management officer. So I'm responsible for doing the audit of all of the city's systems that had to do with energy, both that we owned and that we leased off site. And so at 11:55 p.m., December 1999, everybody's standing around. The mayor is standing to my right. Everybody's waiting. We're in the mayor's command center in the emergency operating operations facility for the city. The mayor's standing to my right. He's saying, looking at me and goes, "Lou, are we going to be okay?" I couldn't say no. I had did my job, but also during the course of that found we had some serious problems. But yeah, I was standing there with my toes crossed, my fingers crossed, hoping that the lights would stay on.
Well, you accepted the risk. That's interesting. I got it mixed up with 9/11.
No.
That's what happened to what happened to me. And I remember Y2K. But you're a math guy, right? So you could visualize what might have happened. And you're a Como guy. Hey, let me tell you something about Como. I used to sit on a base radio station at close to Pope Air Force Base, well, and at Chicken Road later on. And I'd take Como through a rhombic antenna from deployed data attachments from all over the world. And I would copy, and the QRK, QS6 signal would go from 5 to 0. I couldn't hear anything, but my hand would still be writing. And if I told myself, this isn't right, my hand can't do this, then I would stop. But if I said, the hell with it, and the QRK signal would come back sinusoidally to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and my hand would still be writing. And take the message, the 5-letter code group, and break it. And more times than not, you could break them. And I couldn't even hear the damn letters, but my subconscious picked them up. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever ran into that, but I did.
No, but I enjoyed Camo. And I mean, I don't want to monopolize the time here. I mean, the other guys got things they want to speak to as well, but I got something to say again about I'm still in Camo.
Okay.
I'm 75 years old and I'm still in Camo. And
Good.
I say that I partnered a company that I had back in 2016 with BlackBerry. And as you know, BlackBerry is out of the hardware business. They don't make phones anymore, but they're one of the top security software companies for mobile devices in the world. That's why everybody, the Clintons and the CIA, you know, DOD all wanted BlackBerry phones because of the encryption. And so that's the reason why I partnered with them as a small business partner. So I'm a reseller of enterprise software, BlackBerry software for mobile devices. So I'm still in it, if you will, dealing
Cool.
with all of the requirements that I don't know if you're familiar with what the federal government is now requiring contractors to have in terms of security on their systems. But I'm involved with all of that. I'm just trying to decide, am I going to retire or am I going to try to do this thing one more year? But it's exciting.
You're having too much fun.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, when I say, look, we all know the ability to turn the lights off in the U.S. is there for any enemy that we have. I shouldn't say any. But the ability to turn the lights off, turn the water off, is there. I mean, we're susceptible to that.
Sure. Shoot
And
down,
so-
shoot down the satellites and you're out of combo. But
And
you can
so-
still use the RF and the turbo scatter.
And so what I'm saying is that there are still issues. There are still issues with respect to security, big time, especially when it comes to communications for this country. And so that's why I kind of like stayed.
What about those Russian generals that allowed all the antenna to be destroyed in Ukraine, and then they had to go to their cell phones to make combo?
Yeah, I read about that. Yeah. And so all of the folks over there are listening in on their combo because they're using unsecured cell phones.
I mean, that's what the VC did to us
Yep.
on Nui Ba Den. Hey, nice talking to you.
Likewise.
Hey, Stefan, are you still there? I guess he's.
I'm still here.
It was all that extraneous.
No, I think it's very interesting because we have the does as a trainer is being brought out here this time. It may not be specific to Nui Ba Den, but it's really good compliment to the SF history that needs to be told.
Well, the big story to be told that SF guys are special.
That's true.
And I didn't know that. I thought when I was in 101st Airborne Division, we were special. But
How special forces was, that's all.
the way I got into Special Forces, I had a friend who was an FO, had been in the 77 Special Forces, and he had a mustache in the 101st. And when General Timmies came up to him during a command inspection, he worked for Westmoreland, who was the division commander. He said, "Son, when are you going to shave your mustache?" And he said, "When you shave yours, sir." And the first sergeant just about had a heart attack. So I said, "What unit were you in?" He said, "The 77 Special Forces." And I said, "I want to be in that unit." And that's how.
It was liberating.
Look,
It was truly liberating.
going back to Nui Ba Den, unlike an A camp, your basic TL&E was one officer, 4 radio operators, and a medic, and a team sergeant on occasion. That just seems to be what I saw in the history of the camp, the people you had. Obviously, you don't go somewhere without an SF medic with you. But you basically had one radio supervisor, senior radio operator, and then three others, many of whom were there only for about a month, filling in, wandering around, and then some of them may have been there for a longer period of time.
Yeah, but we also had radio guys that ran the relays for troposcatter, microwave, long distance calls back to the States over the troposcatter. That's the only long haul system they had, and communication within theater. So we had a whole bunch of radio operators that were dependent upon us to protect them. And we got them involved in battle drill every day. And a lot of them have come to our reunions.
I see them.
Those were people from other units, other signal units in the country. They were specialists by standards.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Hey, Steve.
Bias.
Steve.
Oh my God.
Bias.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. You gotta say something.
Will you sit down and behave yourself, or you go in there?
Go ahead, Bias. Speak.
Sit here and be
Yeah,
quiet.
no. The reason yeah, the TOD was there, but most of the time in 67 and 68, well, in 68, communicators were like chicken head, they were hard to find. Most guys, when I went to Vietnam, I sure as hell didn't want to be a communicator. I wanted to be an action guy. But you always end up in a damn B team or an A team. My first A team was Traku, and I liked it. I love the fact of going out in the field and building your own little A camp and setting up your own commo. I think it was probably November. We were still using quite a bit of code to get messages across, to get traffic back and forth from the A teams over to the company level and up to the train. If I remember correctly, I think we had a sit rep to the train about once a day, and it was usually early in the morning. So I meant either the commo man or the assistant commo. And if you were lucky enough to have two commo guys in an A camp. But in Nui Ba Den, hell, we had four radio operators, and one of them used to spend a lot of the time drunk. So any of the time we could get off the radio, we would use to spend, going through the caves or music. But that's kind of the way I remember Nui. It was a hell of a nice place to be. I remember the song, You Can See for Miles and Miles. Every time that damn song comes on, I can always remember, Nui Ba Den. But
Were the caves open when you were there?
Well, they're occupied.
I'm sorry?
No, I was asking Elias, were the caves open? I thought I heard you say you guys went into
The
some of the caves.
ferries. Oh, hell no, the caves were, everything was open. During the attack in May, 3 of the members went off the mountain. I was on the radio, and Mike Winslow can attest to that. I was the last guy that heard on Nui Ba Den, because I started burning stuff up with terminal grenades and destroying records. I thought we were gone. The building at that time, they were still made out of wood. And when the BC came up there, they were just hitting everything, and everything was going up in flames. Everything around me was out in flames. And I knew the only safe place that in my free time, I get a flashlight and I try to explore in these caves, seeing how far they would go down. And they were just below the pagoda. And, you know, any of us that were there in 67, probably the caves were still open. You could still crawl through the rocks and actually find tunnels that would go in down the mountain. There was the volcano shafts. And I mean, Sam, I don't know, did you ever go in those caves?
Lou, that's directed to you, I think. Sam, you gotta unmute.
Brock. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Sam?
Yeah,
Chapman, you said when you were there, the caves were all blocked up.
Yeah, the caves were occupied by the bad guys.
Well, yeah, but off the top of the mountain, down below the pagoda, you could actually go through the tunnel, through the shafts, through the rocks. If you crawled, it was tough, but you could crawl under there, and you could go down probably 60, 70 feet in darkness. You know, you have to have a good flashlight.
Oh,
I remember going down. And the reason I used to like to hang out down there was the fact that it was so cold. Cool air was coming out. Seemed like cool air would come out of the mountain in the
Now,
caves.
Was this at the base of Nui Ba Den or at the top?
No, this was on top.
Okay.
there was a little pagoda on top. That was where that's where I had my.
Yes,
And the radio operator was there. That's before the engineers came in and made a chalet.
All right,
You know-
this is Nui Ba Den.
yes.
Maybe a little bit of a surprise.
Holy shit. Yeah, holy mackerel.
Yeah, I've seen this before.
Yes,
I know
Lance,
I know it's a
yeah,
tourist
Lance
attraction.
Trimmer was telling me about. I'm
You
sorry?
were in Vietnam?
No, I said Lance Trimmer and Mike Winslow, we were planning to go back to Nui Ba Den. I had heard about the trans. It's amazing.
Yeah, they got a tram that takes you up to a fair, but you know, it's a fairgrounds, a carnival that
Uh-huh.
happens at the top of that mountain. People will take a tramway up there.
Oh my God. Yeah. This is what I mean. You know, that picture where you can see for miles and miles, you could see the whole, seemed like you could see all the way to Saigon, you know, if you were lucky.
I can see the zoo.
I mean, the place was beautiful.
I used to call, I could see Khartoum.
Yes, standing up there, looking out on a nice clear day. I mean, that was a beautiful sight. However, the flip side of that was when you got socked in, when those clouds came over the top, that's when the bad guys came out of the holes because you couldn't get air support.
Exactly. Yeah. Early January, when I first went up there, we were still going down to the watering hole to get water. We would take 5-gallon drums or 5-gallon cans and get water from down below. Now, Dan, I think you were there in 67, correct?
Right.
I guess he's mute.
We had a rubber cache up
Sam,
there.
were you there?
We had a place that caught the rain. It was a big rubber. We had the engine dig a big hole and they put rubber underliner in it to catch the rain. And that was supposed to be a water source. So we still paid
Yeah.
water to go down and get our water.
Yes,
and Coleman fired them all. The Captain Coleman fired them. So I guess you had to do it, right?
exactly, because usually the water, most of the time you couldn't drink that. Most of the time you couldn't drink the water out of the bladder because the damn thing was filthy, or you couldn't get the damn helicopter to bring you clean water from the bladder, so you have to go down to the water hole.
So you drank Bommy Bar instead, right?
But I think Chapman was talking about, yeah, there you go. Or Viria LaRue. Hey, Steve, you did a great job with this. I wish there was more guys there. I would have liked to heard more about what the heck was still there or is gone. But the fact of you having those pictures of that train going up there, that's great.
Yeah.
That's on the internet, just cable car at Nui at Black Virgin Mountain.
When
And
you
you got-
guys were at Bragg before coming to Nam, before going to Nam, what was the word about at that time SOG? Were you getting any advice about?
I didn't know about SOG when I was before Vietnam. I didn't know about SOG in Vietnam. I didn't know about SOG until after Vietnam. It just, that, in my part, that wasn't talked about.
Well, all we were told
It
was, all we were advised, when I say we, I mean, there were some of us, talking to some of the older guys who had tours already. But I was in the 7th. I had just graduated and went to the 7th. And so I'm out doing some training with a couple of old Rangers from Korea. And they said, look, they didn't call it SOG. I don't remember, they're using the acronym. They just said, hey, look, if you get a request, don't go.
CNC.
Don't go. Yeah. Now, here's what happened though. I get there, I get on the train, and we're going to what's it? S1, I guess, right? What's personnel?
S1.
S1. Go on to S1, get your orders. So the guy standing in front of me, the guy gave him his orders, and the guy looked at it and he goes, oh, CNC. He was going to CCN. And so he turned around and walked out. I stepped up and the guy gave me my orders, and it was A company. And so that evening in the team house, I saw the guy who was giving out the orders. So I said, hey, today, I got my orders for A company. I said, but the guy standing in front of me, he got CCN. I said, how did that work? He said he was standing in front of you.
That's it. He wouldn't tell you what.
And come to find out that 68 and 69 were the worst years for SOG, CCN, CC Central, CC South was their worst years, because they come to find out, as you guys probably know, there was there was somebody down in Saigon or wherever it was that was giving coordinates for the guys who were going in on the Alps.
Yeah. Well, when I was there, we
I remember.
knew about them. We knew about B-56. We knew about Mobile Guerrilla Force. Of course, I worked with the Mike Force and the Mobile Guerrilla Force, and worked with the Roadrunners. And I know that the CNC, so we had a couple guys come to our A team from SOG, and we knew they went into North Vietnam along the Ho Chi Minh Trail and brought in arc light missions, and they went in, get down pilots. They did a great job, and there's a lot of risk involved. And a lot of guys in our SF-59 chapter were were in actually SOG. And I worked for a colonel that worked for Delta. And of course, I've been out to Range 19 at Bragg, and I supported them. I was on the black side, buying stuff for them through quick reaction procurement, so I know all about them. Made jumps out of their airplanes at JSOC. So most guys in SF know about these people, and what they did before, and what Bekowitz did. So.
Did you guys get a chance to fly Air America?
Yeah, I flew on Air America, run by the CIA, white mice, yeah.
I had to take off, I had to take some
Yeah.
documents down to Natran. Couldn't get a flight back. And so the option was, if you couldn't get a flight, go over to the Air America terminal and got an Air America flight back to Benoit.
Yeah, what I liked about flights by those guys, you'd get to Saigon at 10,000 feet, and then you'd take a dive to Tan Son Nhut to land. And if you had sinus problems, they exploded on you.
Yeah. Yeah, the good old days, the good
Yeah.
old days. Like I said, when I got a
There
chance
was
to do
the-
some scrounging. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I said, one of the things that I remembered in my time in Vietnam was the fact that I didn't mind being a combo man. I was a half-assed combo man. I was a 2020 guy. So I wasn't too worried about copying or sending. But one of the things that I wanted to get the hell away from was being that I was a small guy. I didn't like carrying all that extra bullshit, batteries and crap. And I would look at the weapons guy, and I would look at the engineer. Everybody else had a lighter weight except for maybe the medic. So I never, for most of my career that I've spent in the military, I never wanted to be the commo guy. I wanted to be something else. But that's what I always did. And
You
when I
carried
left Traku, I'm sorry?
you carried your radio and operations out of Traku?
Yeah, I was a communicator at B351, which was Traku. And that was that's where I started out in probably October, November, December of 67. And from there, I talked my commander. I was supposed to go to B36 Mike Force, but when I got to B32, they had just lost 2 communicators up on Nui Ba Den. And B30, Major Greitz at the time made a deal with the sergeant major at B32 that as soon as they got a next communicator came in, that I would come back off the mountain and go back to the Mike Force. Well, that never happened. I went up to Nui Ba Den, and that was when we got overrun in May. But
Yeah, my force was
you know,
in Trenton, right?
I was the communicator. I was a diddy dum dum diddy.
Did you carry the hand crank
I'm sorry?
generator? Did you carry the hand crank generator too? The GN 43 and 58?
Usually the combo man had to carry that because nobody else wanted to carry the goddamn thing and the damn seat, you know.
Well, that's,
So,
I'm sorry.
when
Yeah, I'm
ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
no, I said that was the curse of the damn combo man having to carry the damn seat, you know. The generator wasn't bad. It was just heavier than shit. But that damn seat would tangle up on everything you walk by.
Well, for me, I didn't get the I wasn't made aware of what it was going to be about being a combo man in terms of what my load was going to be until we made the phase 3 jump, till we jumped into Pineland for phase 3, right? So
Yeah.
that was the first equipment jump we did, out of training. Up until then, we weren't doing equipment jumps. And so now as the combo guy, I got the 109, I got the receiver, I got a battery. Luckily, or I shouldn't say luckily, but they gave the generator to one of the engineers on the team who were jumping in. But I mean, well, you know how it is anyway when you're standing up, when you're hooked up, you're just waiting to get the hell out of that plane. Well, I got all this damn weight on me, and you got that extra bag hanging down below your reserve, carrying all this stuff, and you got your weapon, all that. Man, I couldn't. I was so happy to get out of that damn airplane, with all that weight on me. But
That's why we developed the no-pull parachute, the no porosity parachute, the MC1C, so you'd come down lighter under load.
Yeah, well, that's the other half. That's the other half of it. But the other side of that is you got to walk that stuff onto the plane and wait to jump with it, But I was going to say, the reason why I asked the question, I didn't have to carry my radio on operations.
Listen, if you missed that radio, I've got one. I've got a 109 and I've got a hand crank generator, both versions. And I have a Collins KWM2A single sideband radio. And
I was thinking about getting me a 109 and a pad, I was thinking about maybe getting me one of those. But the reason why I didn't carry it because we had KKK on my team.
Khmer Kampuchea Krum.
Khmer Kampuchea Krum.
The Cambodian guerrillas.
Now that was a political organization in Cambodia. Okay?
Yeah, we had a colonel.
Because we had two, SF had two when I was there. There were two Cambodian, the B team, B-32 had Khmer Cambodians. We had KKK.
Yeah.
Now, when I arrived, I was the only African American on my team. And so the KKK looked at me and pointed at me and said, you're same Cambodia. So they made me an honorary member of the KKK. Now, how did they do that? They had one of the women, we had folks, they had their families and stuff, made me you've seen the KKK flags, right? That they wore around their necks. You ever saw those? Red, white, and blue with big white letters, KKK. So they made me one of these red, white, and blue battle flags that you wore around your neck with the white KKK on it. And then below that in the center, it said number 1. Because, you're either number 1 or you're number 10.
That's right. No in between.
So I had, because they did that, and my team sergeant had suggested, Chapman, you go ahead on and become liaison to the KKK. So that's why I spent a lot of time with them. But anyway, I had to wear that on operation. Now, I felt good about being with the KKK because the word was, if you see the KKK running, it was time to run.
They were a tough outfit.
That's right. They stood and fought. So I was happy about that. But I had the Vietnamese who hated that.
Yeah.
But I had to wear it. They wore theirs. I had to wear mine. I donated it. I mentioned it to you, Steve, when we had our reunion. My team had our reunion in 2015. The fifth up at the fifth group up at Fort Knox hosted that. Fort Campbell hosted that. The command, the CG there decided that they was going to host our reunion, and during that reunion, I donated it. That KKK flag to the 5th. I don't know if you've been into to the facilities there at Campbell, where the 5th headquarters is at. on one of the walls, they got pictures of, a lot of the old guys, from Nam and stuff. And so anyway, that KKK flag is up on the wall somewhere there. Up at
Cool.
the,
Cool.
yeah,
Well, I had a regimental commander in the KKK, Chu Hoy to us, and we made him platoon leader. And those guys were tough as nails. They would,
Yeah.
the VC were scared to death of them. And
Yeah.
the NPA, the commercial eye wore the red and blue scarves.
right.
They were tough too, but they were separate.
Yeah.
But the KKK, they were Chu Hoy communists from Cambodia. And, but you're right, they didn't get along with the Wahao or the Vietnamese, this is the way it was, right? And we had Noongs too, which were Chinese extracts, and they were in the Rangers. They were
You said
tough.
you had what?
Noongs,
Oh,
Which-
nuns. Yeah, Chinese nuns. Yeah.
they were in the Ranger battalions.
Yeah, didn't come across any nuns. Just the two Cambodian groups. But yeah, that was interesting time, man. I mean, that was interesting time. My team, we had a rebellion while out on operation. CIDG rebelled. We got out to the border, and we had just issued them M16. They had been complaining. They had the M14s when we got there, and so they had been complaining that they were going, they were outgunned, and so they wanted the 16s. So we finally got them the 16s. Took them, got them through the rifle range and all that kind of stuff. And so this is the first operation. Well, at least with my partner. My partner was a team sergeant, and so we get out there, and the patrol stopped. The column stopped. And so, I'm standing there with the team sergeant, and like, what the hell's going on? So we called the Vietnamese SF guy back and said, what's going on? He said they don't want to go any further. And then the next thing we know is the line turned around from the beginning of the column that was closest to the border. They just peeled around and started walking back to the camp, dragging their M16, their brand new damn M16, dragging it by the barrel. Like, what the hell? Now, we all got, the word, and, while I brag on the training, that having something like this happen can be serious. And so you can't do anything. I mean, shit, there was 125, 100 of them. We had about 25, 30 KKK, but there's nothing you can do. We get back to the camp. Just before we get to the gate, 2 gunships rose up. I mean, it was like a movie. It just rose up each side of the camp, and they made them stack weapons before coming back into the camp. But that was an interesting time.
Yeah.
We were able to get rid of the leaders of those CIDG that did that.
Which camp was this?
Duke Way, 325. This was 68.
That's gonna come up next week.
What was going to come up next week?
Duke Way.
I thought this was Duke Way. Oh, this is Nui Ba Den.
Right.
Oh, okay. I got you. Okay.
Well, a lot of the mass desertions were caused by the LLAB stealing the money from the SIDS when you got on payday. And you could tell when they were leaving camp, there was a mad minute that covered their exit, and we had to replace them. In fact, the guy I replaced was kidnapped, XO was kidnapped, and I replaced him. So the LLAB is behind a lot of that crap going on.
Hey, big time. We, as you know, the food was brought in by, CH, food was brought in once a month or whatever it was. And so the folks could get, the families could get their food. Well, it got to us, came back to us. We're sitting in the team house one evening, And our intel guy says, foreman, he says, hey, CIDG are pissed off. What the hell? For what? Come to find out, the LLDB team sergeant was taking their money because at that time we were giving them the money to pay the CIDG. Okay? And so when we found that out, we took back that particular situation. I mean, that is, we started paying them on payday as opposed to giving the money to LLDB. Now that team sergeant then put the word out in the camp. This was brought back to us. If any VC in the camp that wants to shoot at these guys, you can. And up until that time, we didn't carry our weapons around with us during the day when we were back in the camp. We were secure. There was no weapons. We didn't carry anything. And then from that point on, boom, we got to start arming ourselves anytime we stepped outside of, our inner.
You're in a berm.
Yeah,
Yeah, in a berm, right?
because
Yeah.
we stopped that graft, that theft.
Yeah.
Interesting times, fellas. Interesting times.
I missed telling you this story at the last session we had earlier today. But one of the lieutenants at 323 by the name of Siciliano, who many of you guys may know, he told a story about being a pay officer somewhere. And he was sort of a joker. And he had this toy that he bought from the United States. And he put it out there in the pay line next on the table. He took a note and he put it inside. Well, he'd pay somebody money and the guy would say, "You're short. You gave me a 50p note where it should have been a 500p note." He said, "Oh." And he's sticking in this little box, and he cranked the box, and a 500p note would come out as though it would have been magically changed from a 50p to a 500p note.
Hey, during TET, I was the pay officer for a brigade when I was the S1 at B32. And, just before TET, there were a lot of desertions. So I ended up paying phantom strength. They'd come through the pay line and show me the serial number of the weapon, and they'd put their X down on the pay sheet. I had a big log, big ledger, and I knew something was up, And I was told to shut up. And I said, "Man, I'm paying $1,000. I'm paying phantom strength. Guys were going through the pay line twice. Just change weapons. I think I was stupid." And then I'd make palladium payments to the bereaved widows, before we burned their beloved in the rubber plantation. And the ones that really stopped long enough to count their money, I knew that they'd be back again. And they'd go to the B team and ask for another palladium payment. And the ones that actually cried when I gave them the money, I knew they were okay. But we had them going from the A team to the B team to the C team to the throne. And you get paid 4 or 5 times until we finally figured out what they were up to. But they thought they just saw the war as an opportunity to get rich. But they were surviving any way they could. So
Yeah.
I don't really blame them.
My experience with the CIDG, when you come out of Bragg, like I said, I just graduated, went to the 7th. I don't know how long I was with the 7th before I got my orders. I had signed up to go to a Ranger school, and I got my orders to go to Ranger school, and then I got my other orders that said, "No, you're not going to Benning. You're going to Vietnam." Lost my train of thought, fellas.
It's okay. You're 75. What do you expect? I'm pushing 81.
Lost my train of thought.
How old are you, Stephen?
He's 79 this year.
79? Man, you really look litigious with all those books behind you. You got a ladder? Look like you got a library.
I'm lucky I can still climb it. Jumping out of airplanes was easy, but nowadays climbing a ladder is difficult. And that's true. We have several general officers in SF who have fallen off of ladders and seriously injured themselves the last few years. And then one general officer who fell off of a tractor and he got killed.
We had,
Yeah.
you had
At
Phil-
our age, we shouldn't be driving tractors or climbing ladders without good handholds.
you had Shelton fell out of a tree in his home in DC after he retired. You know, he had an SF team in Vietnam. General Shelton. Yeah, you're right.
He fell off a ladder. He would,
Yeah, he broke his neck.
and Stringham, Joe Stringham.
Yeah.
You know, don't be on the roof. Don't be climbing ladders. You're a
And
general officer.
And don't think you're immortal since you went through jump school. Then you can eat snakes.
You know, back to about Nui Ba Den, the most emotional night, afternoon or whatever it was, I'm not sure what it was, on Nui Ba Den. I'm on the radio. It was my turn on the radios. And somebody comes up and just with a little short burst and saying, help. And so I'm trying to get as much, I'm trying to zero in as I can, possible with, my antennas to get a better signal. But all I could get was, please help. Please help. And to this day, I don't know whether or not that was NVA playing games or whether that was somebody from CCN or CC Central, CC South, on the other side of the fence.
Do you have a date?
That was the most haunting time for me on the radio, having that voice come up. And I couldn't, because when I responded, evidently he couldn't hear me.
Do you have a date?
Huh?
Can you pinpoint a date?
Well, this is me coming in country, so this would have been, hold on. Yeah, I came in September of '68, so it would have been sometime in September, early October, because I only spent maybe about 30 days, getting acclimated. Why you ask?
Because if you give me a date, I can tell you things that happened on that date all through SF and SOG. So if I see we lost a team out of you're talking 68, you lost a team out of CCS, I would know. So, but I have to be by date because the range of dates is too broad.
Again, I don't know whether or not it was CC South or not.
It wouldn't matter. What I would know, for example.
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, it would have been September, sometime between September, October. Because my award, my plaque that I got when I was clearing has me as September '68 to November '69. So sometime in September, October, I was on top of the mountain.
All right, let just to play with it a little bit here.
Yeah, that was you don't know whether or not this is real or not. It sounded real. I mean, there was no accent to the voice. It sounded like somebody was in serious distress. And they couldn't speak, evidently they couldn't speak loud. It, just got the impression that, obviously somebody would have been wounded or something. They were by themselves. But that was a haunting experience that's always been with me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's. Hey, Stephen.
Right.
Yeah, I got a story I share with you if you're interested. My second career, I ended up at FORSCOM headquarters in Fort McPherson, 4-star headquarters. And one day they told us all assemble down the atrium because they were going to give a Purple Heart to an MIA. And his name was Geist, Staff Sergeant Geist, who was MIA from Minton, shot down over Cambodia with the fact named Lieutenant Huddleston. He was in I think an L-19. And I said, well, I remember that guy. He was on my A team at Tonglishop. And he just came to us from CNC. And he helped me in a big battle, and I knew him pretty well. So I sent a note to G4 that, hey, I knew this guy, and the ceremony included his family, this MIA's family, Geist, and his sister-in-law, who brought her 6th grade class from Marietta, and they're all down there, and they invited me to say a few words about Geist. And General Schwartz got up and said some nice things about him and gave her the Purple Heart. And then they asked me, the aide came over and said, well, you got 1 minute, Seton. So I got up and I started talking about him, what a great guy he was, what he did, how he got over there and blah, blah, blah. And I talked for about 10 minutes, pissed the aide off. The general looked at me like, you stole my show. But later on, he forgave me. And anyhow, after the ceremony, family came over and said, hey, sir, man, I really appreciate you talking about him because you're the last person who saw him alive. I said, yeah, that's a shame. And I used to go visit him at the mall every time I got a chance, the Washington Mall on the wall, and saw his name there, and I wondered what happened to him. And he said, well, we couldn't get squat out of Special Forces on his stats. I know they're looking for his body and blah, 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 but we had no idea what happened to him. So I went back to my desk. So I said, who do I know that can help? So I said, I know this colonel who had the 10th Special Forces. His name was Tangany. You probably know him. And he made his 3rd star, and he was a USASOC commander. So I sent him a note. I said, sir, General Schwartz just gave a Purple Heart to an SF guy. And I said, I was there and this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. And the family came up to me and said, they can't get closure on what happened to him. I said, why don't you get one of your guys to go down to the Swick Library and get the monthly operational summary report and write him a letter, write the family a letter to give him some closure. So he came back to me with a note and said, yeah, I got it, Sam, thanks. So about 2 weeks later, she got the letter with everything the Army wouldn't tell her about. But that made me feel good that the system, the brotherhood worked.
You guys remember Langvey?
Yeah, I knew the guy. I knew those guys.
Well, I was still in training group when that happened, February of 68, February 68.
Right.
So, obviously, everybody heard about it and heard about the 2 guys that went MIA. I'm back home living in Washington, D.C. And at that time, I was a member of the 11th SFA. And I was one of the guys who had volunteered with a group of other guys from the chapter to host families who were being buried, the SF guys who were being buried at Arlington. So we would host the family. We would provide any kind of assistance we could, that kind of thing. One time, the burial were these two guys. They had found the bodies. They had found those bodies. So here I am, back home, living my civilian life with the association, and we're burying the guys from Lang Bay that went missing, the two guys. That was an interesting, being there with the families, because that was closure for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was good what you did. Yeah.
There was on the 27th of September, a big battle at A-323. And there were a
What's
number
that, platoon? Hey, what was 323?
Tiangan or Elias
It was what?
in September of '68. Where was 323? Did they move to Tiangan or is it still Tri B?
Oh, don't start me to lying. I mean, I'm
No.
not sure because of the movements. I was looking at your website and I could see that, there were different times, different numbers. So I don't know.
Yeah, but the team moved sometime from Tiangan, from Tri B to Tiangan. I'm not sure when they moved, but on September 27th, '68, I have Mike Winslow, who was with us this morning, getting a Bronze Star with V. The Captain Clark getting a Bronze Star with V. Howard Cranford getting an ARCOM. Donald Ingram getting an ARCOM. Campbell, the A company commander, getting a Bronze Star with V.
What was the action?
I don't know, but there's all these people from that one camp on the 27th of September, which is right nearby you. So if there's somebody saying help,
Yeah.
that was more like, here's Jerry Winchester. It was the same date, same time. Emilio Fregoso. Those are people from the camp.
Okay,
So yeah,
interesting.
I'm going, went on to, from that day, I went on to about the 10th, and I didn't see anything that looked like it was.
Steve, you should have a Purple Heart for me that date. Uh, 28th September
29th of
and Tinyon.
let's pull the date off here.
Now this was 68, not 67, 68.
Nui Ba Den, you got
68.
September 6th of 1960.
Yeah, but
You got a Purple Heart, but that was 2 weeks before. Where were you at that time? All I know is you're an
Tinyon.
You were Tinyon, November,
Yeah.
January, September.
No, in September.
9/6/68 is your Purple Heart.
9 what?
9/6/68. That's about 3 weeks before.
What
Well,
was the date?
21 days, 3 weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
9/6/68.
Yeah, that was the initial hit. Uh-huh.
And the other thing I was talking about was the
Yeah,
27th
that was
of September. So Close.
There was a lot of people that put in, I'm sorry?
That was the 6th. The other ones I was reading about were the 27th of September, both of September 68.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Stefan,
Yeah,
Steve,
the-
are you an, are you
Steve,
an, Steve, are you an annex to the Swiss Library?
no,
Could be.
I should be, but we have this little friction here. They've sent people over here. They had 2 people came here from Fort Bragg to this office and spent 2 days here. They copied a handful of papers, some rosters I had. We went out for a couple of good dinners, and they really wanted to end up having this stuff all go to them in my will. It ain't gonna happen
Good for you.
because I know the history office at Fort Bragg way back when. And at that time, they had like 3 PhD historians and 1 civil service secretary. And the historians would go out and interview people and tape everything and bring it back to the secretary. The secretary, being a GSA employee, had the right to file her fingernails for 8 hours or for 4 hours or every 8 hours she worked. So there's stacks of tapes on her desk. These guys could interview people and the tapes would stack up. And she'd never catch up to them. I've relatively good relations with them because they ask me questions and I answer the questions.
Well,
They never help me.
some of the times I've been to, I've talked to high schools and they taped me and they did a transcript and sent it to the Library of Congress.
Yeah.
So that might be a good place.
Oral history program and Library of Congress is very good, except that they don't check anybody who they've taped. They have more phonies in that oral history program than almost any other place I've seen.
So Steve, what are you gonna do with your material?
I have an arrangement. The chapter here has on standby 3 people at all times. If anything happens to me, they are aware of the fact that it's their responsibility to transfer what I have to the person I've chosen. And I've chosen Joe DeSantos to take over for me. If he should die, their job is to figure out what else to do. But his job is to clean out this whole room up here and turn back to my wife as a pristine, empty room.
What SS chapter are you in?
Chapter 39,
Which chapter are you in?
chapter 39, Houston.
39.
Where's 39?
Houston,
Steve?
Texas.
Oh, okay, yeah, of course. Well, yeah, you're in Texas. Yeah, I'm with 38. I left chapter 11 when I moved from Washington to Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta. So here in Atlanta, I'm closer to 38 up at
Oh, they got a good chapter in Atlanta.
huh?
They got a good chapter in Atlanta.
Well, it's really interesting. When I first came back to join SFA, I went down to Fayetteville and went over to National and was talking to some of the guys there, and I said, hey, they asked me, so what chapter you going to join? I said, I don't know. I don't know what chapter to join. So they suggested that I join chapter 11.
Hey, let me stop you there. I'm in Atlanta and I'm on chapter 59. And we have our meetings in Macon at the Divers
really?
Club. Or we have them at the hangar, the Army Museum hangar at Tara Field, or the racetrack.
You can go into a chapter meeting in another chapter. So go get information from Sam as to what his next meeting is, and you go to it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you'd be our member. You come to our meetings. They'd love to have you.
You're a member of the association, you go to any meeting you want anywhere in the country.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm aware of that, and I would be happy to come down, drive down to Macon. My mom was from Macon.
Where are you from? Well, were you in Atlanta?
Well, my dad was Korean Navy, so I was a military brat.
Where do you
But,
live in Atlanta?
I'm on the West End, over by Morehouse School of Medicine.
Well, I'm in Jonesboro.
You're in Jonesboro. Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. I get my gas from the Costco's down there tomorrow.
Yeah, okay, well, we're close by.
Yeah.
So, hey, I got your email. I'll link you up
Yeah.
for our next meeting. And tell you what we're up to.
Well,
Okay,
the
sure.
His name escapes me for the president. I don't know if he's still president. Biff.
Biff, yeah, Biff is Biff. Biff is our president.
From B-52.
Yeah, he works out. He lives in Columbus, Georgia. He works at Fort Benning as a contractor for DOD, and I talked to him today. We're going to do a VFW routine Memorial Day at Peachtree City, and I got a regimental flag for it, and we're gonna honor a soldier who died in 7th Special Forces, I think in Afghanistan. But yeah, what's your first name, Chapman?
Lewis, Lewis,
Okay, well, I'm Sam Seaton.
and my friends call me Lou, Lew.
LEW, huh? Like Lou Wallace.
That's correct.
One of my favorite authors.
I grew up in Providence, Rhode Island. My dad being from Griffin, Georgia.
Wow,
Yeah, born in 1921.
that's where Doc Holliday's from.
Yeah, well, back in those days, jobs were not plentiful. So he wanted to get as far away from there, so he joined the Navy. And when he got a chance after World War II, he got assigned to Newport, Rhode Island. And so he said, yep, this is where I want to be. And so from 3rd grade to matriculating to college, Providence, Rhode Island was my home.
So you're a brat.
Yeah, right. And so I came here back to Georgia because my dad became ill in 2005, and my mother was suffering with Alzheimer's. And so I had to come down to take care of her while he was in the hospital. And so after that, I decided to stay.
Good. Nice meeting you.
Likewise.
We can share some more stories and lies,
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
For sure.
I'll send you a note.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Nui Ba Den here. Question.
Okay.
Did you have counterparts, LLDB, on Nui Ba Den?
Not me. There was no
I'm
LLDB up there.
Say again?
When I
Sam?
was there, Steve, there were no LLDB. It was just us and that hooch. The four of us in the hooch.
Sam?
No,
How
we
about,
had no, we had no interference from the LLDB.
did have any CIDG security guards, other people that work for you?
They work directly for me, CIDG, and the water carriers and the contract, the dependents. I looked after all them, and the radio operators.
The coordinator,
They were
water, they were all civilians, but that you had CIDG or just civilian guards?
No, they were CIDG. I paid them, just like I did at Tonglyshawn and Lost End.
By the way, Tonglyshawn, I wanted to tell you this because very few people knew. And one guy was Bob Brown from Soldier of Fortune, who was there. But in the history that I got to put together, after we left, starting in 25 March of 73, the NVA started to push onto what was then the 92nd Ranger Battalion, which is what the camp had turned into. So the base was cut off from all communications by road, and there was an increasing amount of heavy enemy aircraft fire. They dropped a lot of supplies by fixed wing aircraft. For 16 weeks, the enemy shelled Tonglishan 300 times with more than 10,000 rounds and 11 infantry attacks and 9 sapper attacks.
Wow.
They also stepped up their propaganda, urging the Rangers to leave the base. But the defenders held fast and fought off every one of those attacks. By April 11th, 1974, it was the situation was untenable. And the badly mangled Ranger Battalion finally had to break out and fall back to Anlock. The commander, Lieutenant Colonel Lei Van Ngan, was promoted ahead of schedule in recognition of his unit's valiant performance. So that's for you being there. That is really an interesting footnote to your history because you trained those people.
Yeah, that's right. The bottom of the elephants here. Yeah, yeah. And on the road to Anlock is that's where they that was about what, 30 miles? Yeah.
Well, the surprising thing to me about the whole of the CIDG program, Abrams wanted to get rid of SF, and he did it because of the Roe incident, in part. But in the plan was to turn everything to Border Defense Ranger battalions. I would have thought that he would have brought in new officers from ARVN Ranger units to take over. But he left every single one of those SF LLDB officers in charge of those battalions. And they were out there where they had been for all this time with less support than they had from Special Forces because their Special Forces wasn't there anymore to support them. And they had to control the CIDG, who they'd been stealing money from, selling supplies to, otherwise misdealing with them for all of those years.
Chickens coming home to roost.
The only difference that happened was that the Vietnamese Special Forces high command was cut off. There was no more high command. These guys reported to the Ranger commands. The difference. There were no more B teams. So when all this happened, these guys were out there. They didn't have to pay off anybody anymore. They're out of that loop. And they seem to have become very good commanders, troop leaders, because these camps went through hell and they're on their own. They didn't have resources that they had when SF was there. So to me, that's a surprising footnote to the whole history of the GE program.
You know, that's kind of like putting the dependents inside the camp during an attack, because the soldiers would fight for their families, but they wouldn't fight for the flag.
Yeah.
You know, trying to kind of finish. You probably read the story I sent to you about Abrams.
Yeah.
I worked for John Abrams, the commander of Trade Hawk, when he was a colonel in the operations center in the Pentagon. I was in DEMA ODSO, Officer Deputy Special Operations. And then later at FORSCOM, I worked for, I met Abe Abrams, who was the younger son of Creighton. And he went on to become a 4-star general. So every one of Abrams' son was a general. 2 of them were 4 stars, and 1, I think, made it 2nd star. And I got my ass chewed by Creighton Abrams, who supposedly didn't like Special Forces, but he saved my ass for the wrong reason. So,
What was the wrong reason? Well, when I reprinted the Green Beret magazines, I went out and asked everybody for a copy of the magazines. And I got 2 copies of every magazine before I started to print, just to make sure I could go through the whole process. And on one copy of the magazine, there's a picture of General Abrams putting a banner on the SF flag, whatever. He's putting the streamer on it. And the guy who sent me the magazine, which he didn't even remember doing it, had in Abrams' sleeves are rolled up. And right there where the sleeves are rolled up, there's handwritten the word leg.
Really?
Really. So I had 2 copies of the magazine, and I knew that was not an original edition, but I felt that had to be preserved. So when I published the copy, I published a copy that had the word leg in it.
That's cool.
Right, he was an armor guy, right? Your tanker for Patton, right?
Yeah.
Battle
Now, I was there. You mentioned the row incident. I was there when that happened. As a matter of fact, I was up at the B team. I can't remember if I was just up. We would get R&R to the B team, from the team. And I never forget sitting at the bar at the B team at the Tain Inn, and the word came around, Roe has been arrested. And it was like, what? What? Yeah, Roe, they locked up Roe and they've taken him to Long Binh jail. And then the next day the word came down from C team, everybody just be cool. Because sitting around the bar, people were talking about, no, we're not gonna let him stay in LBJ. That was what the conversations were. We're not gonna let him stay in LBJ.
That was just conversation. There were at least 3 full-blown plots. One guy was going to fly an airplane along the highway by Long Binh when they did the morning exercises and they were allowed to run.
Route 1? I mean, yeah.
Going to Vung Tau, yeah. Another one, this guy who was in charge of training for SOG at Long Tan turned to his pilots and said, if I want to conduct an air assault, this guy's got troops. This guy, he's SOG recon, hatchet force element. He's got a lot of troops. He said, if I want to do an assault on Long Binh post, you guys are assigned to fly for me. Will you fly for me if I tell you to do that? He said, hey, we're assigned to you. We do whatever you tell us to do. And there was another one, I can't remember what it was, but I've talked to these people, and that wasn't bar talk. That was how are we going to do this? Now, Roe's friend, who was the group commander in Okinawa, came down to Vietnam and talked everybody out of it. He arranged to get good legal counsel and other things, so he got organized. But yeah.
Was that Splash? Was that Splash Kelly?
No, that Roe was
who came down?
Simpson, Charlie Simpson.
Charlie Simpson.
In fact, Roe was supposed to write a book on special forces, and then this all happened, and Simpson ended up publishing the book under his name. So if you see a book about special forces by Simpson, it was Roe's project to begin with.
Stephen, it was interesting in how SF no longer was an orphan for the Army. During the 1986 Goldwater-Nichols Act, they created their own. I was at the FAA where I worked for the colonel, the general in the operations center. His name was Moore, Major General Moore, and we also had a senior civilian in Salt Lake previous so late that supported making SF a branch. And I saw Colonel Dwayne Downing there at the SOF FAA. He had commanded an armor unit in Hood, and then I think he was the 75th Regimental.
Somali.
Yeah, and he had, before that, he had 2nd Battalion at 2nd Bat at Fort Lewis.
County
But,
took the colors off of the 5th Group Flash.
Yeah, but they ended up
Advantage
they
of-
ended up making SF a branch.
Yeah.
And then you started seeing all the people wanting to get their foot in the door. You saw Guest getting promoted to Brigadier General. You saw Shacknow come up. You saw Sudduth, an MP, made Major General. You saw Downing came up from Brigadier to be a Brigadier General, and then they went all the way to the 4-star. And Shelton and the other path to career path opened up to the Special Ops Aviation Regiment. All those colonels, like Colonel Brown became a 4-star, and Colonel Mangum for 3-star, and so on. And I think the path to even Millie had an A team. So it was okay now to be part of SF. So a West Pointer could become part of SF, not lose his credibility. And I was glad that happened, because in order to win the wars, you had to think out of the box. And the only ones who do that are the SF guys. And you need to get a taste of that once in a while. No matter how regimented you are from your military structure that you come up from the conventional side, or what happens to you at West Point that solidifies your mindset of military logic, you still need to be able to think out of the box like Ukraine soldiers do. But anyhow, I got a kick out of that.
Well, now, Sam, those soldiers, Ukraine, you're speaking of the situation that's going on now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you're aware that the success that those guys have had has come from our groups going over there,
Oh, yes.
providing, I'm not talking about, after the time, I'm talking about
I know.
before, years
I know.
before, going over there, providing them with small unit tactics.
Yeah,
and
I know.
how to use those anti-tank weapons, et cetera. So, and, so that's where,
Yeah.
general public isn't aware of that. All you hear in the news is, man,
Sure.
these guys have been really great about, holding the folks back and da-da-da-da-da. Well, there's a reason for that.
You don't have the silent soldiers are over there training them up, advising them. And the active army have to cuff up the Stingers, the Javelins, and now they're cuff up the Firefinder radar, the M10, M777 titanium 155 howitzers, the MLRS with the ACACMs, and all this stuff that we have in the conventional side of the house, to include the UASs or the drones. SF had, I was at ForceCom, right? So we helped them all the time. I controlled all that stuff. I ran the ForceCom Material Management Center. And so I was involved in moving stuff around to meet all the rotations. And we controlled all the equipment as a force provider for all the units going downrange. And we helped SF a lot. USASOC a lot with some of our conventional stuff. But you're right, you're absolutely correct. That finally, Biden has stepped up to the table and is letting this stuff go. And the little stuff is what's killing the Russians. The anti-tank, and the training and the weapons, and especially now the M777. We use those in Afghanistan.
When I read that, and along with that M777 was the munitions that are
Excalibur smart round,
that are smart rounds. And so you got your doggone little plane up there, your little robot up there.
UAS,
And they're providing you know, they're putting the signal in, and all they got to do is shoot the weapon, because the weapon then will just lock into the signal, and bam, it said within 2 meters. The accuracy within
once
2
they-
meters.
Once they get the MLRSs over there mounted on the M278 tanks, tracked vehicles, which fire 12 MLRS rounds at one time, or the HIMARS 6-pack, which is on wheels. They have what they call an ATACMS round that'll go 300 miles.
Woo!
And then come straight down and right through the cupola of a tank. And of course, they got proximity rounds, and they have kinetic energy rounds. You give them, send over THAADs and Patriot, the Russian Air Force is gone. You send over Apache helicopters with the UAS capability, they will not control the airspace. They don't control it now.
Right, right.
So you're right, with all of our equipment and the fact that we've been training them, but now it's become visible that we're training them on a conventional side on how to fire the 155 howitzers and
Right.
finder radars, the Sentinel radars, which is used for short range air defense, and we're depleting our arsenal. For whatever reason, Biden's doing that. I guess it's to detract from the economy or going south and the border or whatever. It's helping Ukraine, and it's denuding the combat power of an adversary. We can always pull that back.
Exactly. And that's it. I mean, that's what I've read, and that's what I understand to be the strategic part is eroding Putin's ability going forward with his military.
It's also, 2 other things have happened too. China has taken note, okay,
Oh yeah,
of the lessons learned from Russia.
right.
And also the TRADOC headquarters, and particularly Combined Arms Team at Fort Benning, has taken note of how vulnerable tanks are to anti-tank missiles. You know, the Russians, they're so corrupt in their kleptocracy
Yeah,
that the money doesn't get down.
that's right.
Everybody has, all the oligarchs have to get rich.
That's
So what do
right.
they end up doing? Rather than putting reactive armor on their tanks, they put paper boxes on there. And then they wonder why the anti-tank rounds are not reacted to by the anti-armor on the tanks, because they shot themselves in the foot. Are you still there?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So, and the Como debacle, we talked about that. And the mindset of the Russians is, if you ever get a chance, listen to a YouTube presentation by the intelligence officer from Finland, who went to school over in Russia, Petersburg, and knows about the Russian mindset. And the Russian mindset is formed by, they're influenced by the Slavs and by the Mongols. The Mongols, Kublai Khan and Genghis Khan,
Right.
they survived by cheating, thievery, and violence. And that mindset has been bred into the Russian mindset, kleptocracy.
Yeah.
They have to get a piece of the action. Of course, we do that to a certain extent in the United States, but not to their extent, where readiness for armed forces is being hurt. Now, we have good stuff. We have high-tech stuff, right? Everybody gets their piece of the action, but we're a little more efficient than they are. And they're a victim of their own lifestyle and value culture. And Putin is a product of that. How did he come up? He came up through the KGB, who, in order to do that, you lie, cheat, steal, and you disinformation.
Yep.
And who supported him? The mayor of Petersburg. And he covered his ass and got his fair share and made him rich. He supported Yeltsin, made sure all those criminal charges went away. So, his mindset is the Slavic Mongolian mindset.
Yeah.
And we need to be aware of that. Now, I'm glad the Ukrainians that have a Cossack background could look them in the eye and say, hey, we're gonna stand and fight you as a proxy. And they're using their people rather than ours so that we can perfect our weaponry. You know, that's the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's by accident or by design, but that's what's happening. The best place to test your weapons is on the battlefield.
That's
And
right.
what happens, you perfect them and make them better. I don't know what the Russians are going to do. I don't think they're set up to take advantage of the lessons learned. You know, they're just blunderwits that you know waste people in battle, and fire artillery with antiquated artillery pieces, and I don't know if they can react as quickly as we can. But we're going to make our weapons better, and the whole nature of warfare is going to change now because tanks are at risk. They're no longer.
This is going to be an interesting situation in terms of how it plays out. One, spring is coming over there, and so those tanks are not going to be, and those tracked vehicles are not going to be operating on frozen tundra. And then with the M777s, with that munitions coming in that's guided, you know, man, that's going to be tough.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's what 15 miles. They got 15-mile range on that, right? Yeah.
Well, the Excalibur goes 40 kilometers, which is about 24 miles. But well, we got other guns. We got those MLRS that go 300 miles. You know, I mean, we've got other. We have the 8-inch howitzers. We have the 175 guns. We got a lot of stuff in our inventory that can take them out. Plus, we have helicopters. You know, if we
and Sam, I think that when you spoke of Biden waking up, I think that's the message he got from DOD, from the Pentagon. Hey,
sure.
we got an opportunity here to create some damage.
Sure. I'm glad he listened to him. Whether he's forced to or not, it doesn't matter. It's happening.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to keep us. They're playing the nuclear card. You can play tactical nukes to blow a hole in the line of defense of Ukraine. You know, but we're responding with equal tit for tat. I don't know if they'll use chemical warfare, biological warfare. But I think the Chinese are going to back off and think about it for a while. You know, they have 100 years between 1949 and 2049 for they're going to dominate the world with their political and their economic mindset. So they're a little more patient. And Xi is waiting and watching. He's a smart son of a gun, as Chinese are. They're going to learn from the lessons of the Russians, and they're going to let them dangle, and they're going to let us fight it out amongst ourselves, and then they're going to take on the winner. But they're not going to do it right away. And if they go after Formosa, then that'll be a challenge because we're only equipped to fight one major regional conflict at a time, and one small one. So if they came after Formosa or one of their islands, that would be a challenge to us because we've depleted our arsenal.
One shot thing. That's a one-shot thing. The Chinese, the Taiwanese have one piece of weapon in their arsenal. They don't have one weapon. They have one tactic in their arsenal. If you get rid of the Three Gorges Dam, there is no war.
That's right. You take out the Yangtze, and it'll flood Wunan, and you're right, and the Yellow River, the Yellow River too. That's right. You destroy the Three Gorges Dam. Anybody in the world would know that.
Yeah, but that is their Samson option, the way Israel has. If we got attacked, that's going down. The problem is to penetrate the air defenses of China, you need something really big to blow the damn dam. And you're not going to send the C-130 with a 15,000-pound bomb in through the air defenses of China. That ain't going to work. You're going to have to get something
right.
to do it.
Yeah,
So
well, you're going to need that that new missile system that has that goes up and around and about, you know, and finally comes down.
but you
and
have to have enough power on the end of it.
Hypersonic missile.
Yeah, but you have to have the load on the end, because blowing a dam up, especially that dam, is not an easy option.
No.
Although, you know, given the art of Chinese construction, it may fall apart if you blow on it really hard.
Or maybe we can send them down the Silk Road, you know, in a Humvee, you know, and they wouldn't know, or a camel, you wouldn't know you're coming. Send the Rangers in their
Well,
in their-
folks, you remember how Halo was first introduced to SF with the tents in terms of bringing in those suitcases if needed be. So that's the old school way. I don't think anybody would want to jump in there with a suitcase.
Well, you're going there with the ADM.
The suitcase on them had already said goodbye to their family.
That's right. That's a one-way trip.
That's right. We send them in with the atomic demolitions, you know, in the suitcase.
Say them.
And you could take out the gorgeous dam. Or you can have you can screw around with Mother Nature and have a flood, you know, blow up, you know, bomb the Tibet and make sure the glaciers melt, and then you'll have a flood on the Yangtze, and then the three gorgeous dam made by Chinese constructors will go away.
Blame it all on climate control, right?
Yeah, blame it on climate control.
I'm of the belief that China is more interested in getting that Silk Road done as opposed to going to war.
I'm reading a new book that just came out. I don't know if you remember John O'Neill from the Kerry election, the Swift boats.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
He's written and released a new book called The Dancer and the Devil. And it's about Anna Pavlova, the ballet dancer, and Stalin. But that's just the beginning. He got interested in that little thing. But then he started thinking about the ramifications of it all. And he's pointing out that Stalin, Kim Il-sung, Putin, and Xi are all the same people. They're all hardcore Stalinist murderers who just are not adverse to using whatever weapon is in their ability, particularly bioweapons, whether it's to murder individuals or to murder large quantities of people. They're not adverse to using them. And that the COVID-19 business was just Chinese demonstration or a Chinese failure, which they've had on numerous occasions to control their experimentation. And the Soviet Union has had a number of problems along those lines that they don't talk about it. But John was able to identify the whole range of history back to the 20s of poisonings and loss of control of bioweapons. Despite the fact they've supposedly signed treaties, they're not stopping on it. And what Xi is doing in China and what Putin is doing in Russia, they're killing off the best minds because they can't stand any opposition.
Right.
Jack Ma, who was the guy who invented Alibaba, which was the Chinese equivalent of Amazon, he's a nobody. The company has been stripped. And another project that he had on the drawing boards, that's been tossed aside. So we don't know what goes on in Russia. We don't know what goes inside of China. Russia, Putin has been killing off all oligarchs, their whole families, who are hiding overseas. There have been probably at least a half a dozen whole families wiped out of Russian oligarchs in the last month. He's not about to get himself assassinated the way Stalin and Beria did with Stalin, Stalin did with Lenin. That they'll murder the murderers to cover up their own crimes.
Sure. Yeah, that's the Mongol mindset.
And
we got our issues too.
Oh, yeah, we have our issues.
is concerned, Zhukov's tactic in World War II was take all the artillery, level everything in front of you, then send in the bad guys and let them rape all the women and kill anybody else who's still living. And that's the tactic. And,
the generals are always fighting the last war, right?
Yeah.
They can't think forward. They always fight the last war. All those old guys at that ceremony the other day, those are old farts. They're as old as we are, probably older, some of them. But I agree with you. They're ruthless, and our Judeo-Christian tradition is a hindrance to our mindset. Encountering,
we're just not willing to acknowledge that. We'll have a whole basketball league complain if we talk badly about China.
That's right.
Oh no, China didn't. It's not the Chinese virus, not the Wuhan virus. It's just some bat plague.
Well, they're using the gain of function research and plausible deniability for sending the virus to northern Italy, where they had a lot of equities, and then they let it just blossom from there.
And they didn't intend to do it. Once it had got loose in China, their reaction was to make sure it got everywhere else. So any pain they felt in China would be shared by everybody else. I don't think they intended it for that use at that moment in history.
Well, the other part of that perhaps strategy was, in addition to perhaps the additional pain for everybody else, was that the extent to which it was spread made it more difficult at some point to try to figure out where it came from.
They took care of that right away. They destroyed all the early samples that when the WHO came out there, they just killed off everybody.
Right.
The evidence wasn't there, but as John pointed out in his book, there are certain rules of law that apply. First of all, Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is the true explanation, and the second one is if the thing speaks for itself, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And they can deny it all they want, but they had a virus that got out of control. Whether they were using it as a weapon at that moment, their intention was to have it as a weapon for some future moment. And
they took advantage of a crisis. Hey, have you ever read anything about the Chinese warring states strategy developed by the emperors? You need to do that sometime. Find out how they think. For example, one of their strategies is why build aircraft carriers to take on our aircraft carriers? Why don't we just develop missiles that'll blow up their aircraft carriers? Yeah, so we can have a cheap war, kind of like the Ukrainians against the Russians. Of course, we're supplying the cheap stuff, right? But at least they don't have to build an aircraft carrier to counter our aircraft carriers. Now, how vulnerable are our aircraft carriers, as are the tanks in the Russian army, to missiles, which seem to be, smart missiles, guided missiles, artillery, whatever. They're vulnerable. Our aircraft carriers are vulnerable.
But what they've done is beyond that. What they're doing is saying what Sun Tzu said was the best war to win is the one you don't have to fight. What they're trying to do is say, okay, you are so vulnerable, you're not going to be able to risk your aircraft carriers in this theater.
Yeah.
But we have other options, and as I see it, the other option is helping the Taiwanese get rid of that dam.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
But you know, the other big piece in this, uh, regardless of whether it happens with the Chinese or not, and it's going on right now, is that's the cyber element.
Yeah.
Given the degree to which weapons are now controlled by, guided by IT, the ability to shut down a country's weapons through IT. Now, not only shut down their weapons, but as I was mentioning when I was the chief energy management officer in DC with and having to manage the preparation for Y2K, one of the things that we discovered, John Koskinen, who was the White House liaison to the city and to the federal government, John then went on to become the deputy mayor in DC after the Y2K stuff. We're in a meeting with the president of the and vice presidents of the gas and electric company and GSA folks, and of course I'm there because I'm responsible for the city's energy. And John says, "Well, hey, somehow the question came up about generators." And John said, "Well, hey, that's not a problem. All the buildings have generators." And during the course of my audit and dealing with my engineers, that's when I became educated to the fact that those generators at any of those buildings and all of those buildings only keep a light on each floor, and they bring the elevator from the top floor down to the bottom floor. That's all that building generator does. It's not an operational generator. It does not provide the electricity for whatever operations that are taking place within those facilities. And so, if in fact the lights went out for 2000, the year 2000, 2001, there were going to be a lot of darkness for a lot of cities because those generators that were needed were not generators you get from Home Depot. These were generators that had to be engineered into the building. They came in on flatbed trucks. And so the budgets had not even been thought of for that kind of stuff for the various facilities that cities needed. And we're not talking about for every building, of course. We're talking about for those facilities that required, they had to be 24/7.
even if they had generators, they don't have Faraday cages on them.
Right, exactly. So what I'm getting at is that if they turn the lights out on us, the lights are going to go out. There's going to be a lot of dark places in this country. And the turning the lights out on us is an IT function. We're getting, I don't know how many thousands of hits each day. Utility companies are getting hits. Folks trying to get in.
Hey, I get it on my website every day.
Yeah. So
So,
yeah, it's interesting times. It's interesting times. So I'm saying that to say, to what degree Putin will react, given what we're giving Ukraine, and given the damage that's gonna cause them, what degree he's gonna react? Well, he can react in a way in which, it's not overt. They can do it through cyber. So.
Hey, Lou, you're gonna have to get your hand crank generator out.
Hey, look here. I have been telling some associates about the fact that everybody needs to have a generator on hand that has dual fuel capability. That is not only for propane, but also for diesel.
Yeah.
And so when I say diesel, not only diesel, but so that it can burn the fuel from the fast food places, the oil, the grease.
Yes.
That's dual fuel capability. Because,
how about those hand crank generators? They don't have any transistors in them. They don't have any electronic components in them, right? so they're invulnerable to EMP.
EMP, yeah.
You, you just gotta find folks that are young enough to want to crank those bad boys.
Hey,
Well,
Lou, when I ran a telecommunications center, when I was in the Signal Corps too, or, one of my many jobs, we had ups uninterrupted power supply, run off, it would power a DC battery that would keep our telecommunication centers up, and they would come on automatically. We had to maintain diesel generators all the time. But you're right, it wouldn't turn the lights on. It'd only keep the essential functions working. You're right. We gotta,
And I mention that because I don't know to what extent cities, I'm talking about major cities now, have invested in doing that.
Yep.
I mean, the money wasn't there prior to Y2K because nobody, well, even if they thought about it, the politician, those city mayors had to come up and decide that they were going to spend the kind of money it was going to take to bring in those generators that would be sitting there. That's one of the reasons why. People say, well, nothing's ever happened.
yeah. So why buy generators and not hire the proper maintenance people to maintain them
Yeah,
when you really need them?
yeah, that's a vulnerability we got.
Yeah. So did you convince
Well,
me?
one of the things is, one of the things that you guys are definitely not in California, are you? Can you hear me?
yeah, they'll turn off the
I
generator.
said, I guess you guys aren't in California. Where our power outages and our fuel being twice as expensive as yours. I mean, we got generators, we got all kinds of backups, but I mean, with all you need is plenty of weapons and ammo, and you got everything you need, right?
Well, California is hopeless. I like the idea of selling California off to the drug cartels, taking the money to build the wall.
Hey, I agree with it. That wall should go all the way around, but you got to let me get out of here first.
Yeah, tell all the DPs from California, don't bring their politics to Texas.
Well,
That's
California,
the problem. I agree with you.
California, was it parts of California, parts of Nevada, and Colorado. They've got to find where they can get water pretty soon.
Yeah, you're right. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, hey, not all of us that live here believe like them, Hey, Steve, let me ask you a question. When do you have 351 and 352 going on this?
Next week, Wednesday and Thursday next week. I haven't decided what day and what time. A couple of people, I have to schedule them because one guy's in Greece right now, and his best time is the late show. So he'll be that team will be at 4:00. I think that'll be 351, and so 352 will be before that. 353 will be on Thursday.
Okay, that's all.
And 354 will probably be on Thursday.
No.
When will 325 be?
It was. Oh no, 325 is tomorrow. But no, which 325 are you talking about?
Duke Way.
Baku.
Out of B32.
Yeah, but that is always B32 for 325. But 325 had two different camps at different times.
Yeah, I saw that.
Last time, which would be your time, would be Traku. And
Traku, when I was there, Traku was 326, I believe, or either.
Dookway.
No. 351.
Well, but that was maybe 67. But in 68,
69, the teams who were 351, 352 became 325 and 326.
Yeah,
When the
okay.
325 and 326
Yeah.
closed down.
351, I think 351 became 325.
Yeah, one or the other. I don't
Okay.
remember right off the top.
Because
But
325 was the last one before they turned it over to the Rangers.
And 326 are on tomorrow. But that's the original ones, not the ones that after the changeover.
So which ones are tomorrow?
Me over here. Camp list. Bowdon and Godaha are tomorrow, 325, 326. But the next week is Dukwe, which is 351, and Traku, which is 352. That was 325 and then 326.
Yeah, you're gonna do it in Mike forces like the 301?
Not at this time, because I've got CD-ROMs on the Mike forces, all the after action reports. We've collected a lot of history and they've had a lot of attention. But the A teams, there's so many of them. I really haven't done a good job working with them. So I've set aside this year, or most of this year, to go through every A team the way I'm doing here. If people don't come to the meetings, I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
But as this thing, the word gets out, more people will come and show up. And then there's nothing stopping you. You got my email that invited you to this meeting. On that, there were 20 or 30 people whose names appeared, but they didn't show up. But anytime you can forward that email to everybody, and you'll be sending it to everybody that I had the email for.
I'll do that. I'll send it to everybody on our roster. So that's good.
Well, I'm talking about sending it to other members of your own team, but sending it to people in your chapter to say, you better pay attention because I'm doing 3 and 4 Corps now. And if they're not in touch with me, they're going to miss out. I will go back to 2 Corps again when I'm finished, and because I didn't do a good job with 2 Corps, and that's my home base. I went by B teams. I'm B-22.
Well, Steve,
Okay.
Steve, I think one of the things that's going to be real helpful for me is the fact that I got all these emails and names now.
Yeah.
That I didn't have before.
That's right.
And of course, if me and Sam would have run across each other at the convention, I would, other than by talking over a drink, we would have never known the three of us had been at Nui Ba Den at one time or another.
Yeah, that's true.
But now I'll make on my email, everybody who goes to my email gets assigned to all the camps that he's assigned to. So if I just click A351, bang, everybody, whoever was there gets that email. So as long as I do that, and if they die, bing, I drop them off the whole email list because I don't need their email anymore. They're not getting reception out where they're at. So I didn't do that before. This is a new thing I just started 6 months ago, making long lists. And now I have every camp in Vietnam. I'm putting people into there. And you guys, Lou and Elias and Sam, all three of you are on multiple lists that I've got. So when your camps come up, your name comes up.
Well, where's the next reunion?
No, it's true. You know,
Next reunion is in Colorado Springs.
Oh, that's right. I did see that. That's right.
It's going to be this summer, about August or so.
September.
September. Oh yeah, that's right. Because it competes.
Angler Hotel.
September.
Yeah, it's competing with the 5th group thing.
Yeah, the fifth has theirs every year.
So, yeah, but the problem I have there is that they had some problems with the hotel. And they, in order to compensate for the fact that the new hotel won't let them serve drinks at a reasonable price. They've arranged to have drinks at the hospitality suite at a local bar down the street.
Where, in Colorado Springs or?
The problem for me is that if there's a hospitality suite somewhere else, they're not going to come to the vendor's room, and I'm just not going to see people. So I have to make a decision. I probably will show up because I usually do, but I'm not going to be terribly happy about it if I don't see anybody.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned this about the hotel, because when I was looking at it, and I forgot that I looked at it the other day, a couple of weeks ago. When I looked at it, and normally it gives you the rates. You know, they provide rates for the hotel, you know, and gives you the dates for being able to take advantage of those rates that SF would be getting for the convention. Well, when I looked at it, and I'm looking through the hotel, I see the hotel, but there's nothing about cost. I mean, room rental, you know, rates.
Yeah, they've got a link to register, and that gives you the numbers. They have a slight discount on the rates. It's still high for most conventions, but it's about $125 a night. And you know that these days with everything happening, that's probably about reasonable. And Colorado Springs is a relatively expensive place.
If I were to check with National, I want to find out when Chapter 11 is having theirs up in DC.
You mean as a national convention or a local?
Yeah, as a national convention.
I have not heard that they're scheduled. You know, they've got Colorado Springs, and I think they've got somebody scheduled for next year. I'm not sure, don't remember who. And then probably Fayetteville is going to get back in the act again sometime.
Yeah, well, that'll work for me too. That's only 6 hours away, 6.5 hours.
Yeah. Well, I usually drive to Fayetteville, but I'm getting old for that.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, I usually drive too.
So.
Okay. Hey, I appreciate it. I'm gonna sign off and get my Geritol.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good, Steve.
Nice meeting you, Lou. I'll send you a note.
Yeah, I'll stand by for your email.
Okay.
All right.
And I'll send you Ben's best bent wire. Remember that? See you later.
All right. All right, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you much,
Out
Steve.
here.
Okay.